items on the table in front of her: foxtail pen, second-order lower-grade talisman paper, and concentration incense inserted on the incense burner. After making sure it was all okay, she didn't start drawing right away. Instead, he lit the concentration incense and sat down on his knees to begin meditating. A few moments later, she adjusted herself to her best condition. Coming to the table again, she picked up the foxtail pen and dipped it into the spirit ink, quickly drawing the runes on the talisman paper. The pen is incredibly silky, but at the end, she suddenly flicked her wrist, leaving a trail that was no less than a rune. Chi Honyue didn't care too much. The success rate of talismans wasn't high by nature, let alone the fact that she was striking the top of the second rank. Failure is normal. Second one, fail. Third one, fail. 10th one, still failing. The spirit ink within the saucer decreased at a rate visible to the naked eye. Still not working? Chi Honyue sighed, her heart slightly disappointed. Every time you get to the last minute, something is bound to go wrong. With her strength, she still couldn't do it. Just as she was about to give up, though, she inadvertently glanced at the hidden compartment under the table. Might be able to use that one, Chi Honyue secretly said in her heart. She couldn't pull it off anyway, so it never hurt to beat a dead horse and try. Nothing more than another failure. Opening the secret compartment, he took out the benefits he obtained from Yi Ba last time from inside. Pour it into a saucer and mix well. The pink ink was neutralized and much lighter. Chi Honyue originally had a try-and-see attitude, so there were no further steps of meditation or anything like that. She picked up a foxtail pen, dipped it in ink and began to draw. Her heart lifted as she drew the last stroke, but the foreboding failure did not occur. She actually succeeded in drawing it straight away. Chi Honyue was dumbfounded, even though she had done all of this, but her heart was filled with disbelief. Surprisingly, it really can. What kind of divine object is this? Chi Honyue's heart was shocked, unable to calm down for a long time. It was too much of a shock to her perceptions. With her own strength, there was no way she could have succeeded, but with the addition of that divine object, it turned out to be all of a sudden. To verify if it was a coincidence, she drew several more charms one after another, but without exception, all of them succeeded. Now, I'm also a second-rank upper-grade rune maker? Chi Honyue muttered and could only accept this reality, and it was different from the other second-order upper-grade talisman makers. After she used that divine object, surprisingly, the success rate was surprisingly 100%. One had to know that when a second-order lower-grade talisman master drew a talisman of the same grade, the success rate was only 30%. To reach a 100% success rate, unless it was a third-order lower-grade talisman maker to draw a second-order lower-grade talisman. Second-order lower grade is fine. So what if it's second-order middle grade? An even bolder idea surfaced in Chi Honyue's heart. She had a mind to try it, but nay, she hadn't prepared the appropriate talisman paper, and the talisman pen in her hand wasn't of sufficient grade. One could only suppress this idea in the back of one's mind for the time being, and wait until the other things were ready at a later date. Then consider testing it. The divine objects are almost used up, so go collect some more. By the way, try to see if the teleportation array is working properly. Chi Honyue looked at the teleportation array placed inside the bedroom and secretly said. She put away the successfully drawn talisman in front of her and stepped towards the teleportation array. After a flash of white light, Chi Honyue disappeared inside the teleportation array. Inside the cave, Yi Ba watched as the teleportation array glowed brightly, mentally guessing which one will come this time. When the light dissipated, Chi Honyue's figure suddenly appeared in it. Name, Chi Honyue. Realm, 8th level of Chi Refining. Talent, Superior Water Spirit Root. Physique, 19 Absolute Vein, Wonderful. Talisman Technique, 2nd Order Lower Grade. Technique, Swallowing Dragon Technique. Spells, Intermediate Charm. Water Butterfly. The talisman technique has improved? Yi Ba was surprised in his heart. It's good for him. You can continue to gain experience. Sit tight. Time's speeding up. 3 hours later, Chi Honyue finished her cultivation, but did not leave immediately. It then continued, gathering divine objects for the spirit ink she needed to make the talisman. In the end, Chi Honyue left satisfied. How is it that every single one of them even eats? Yi Ba was helpless. He looked to the panel that surfaced before him. Rune Road Experience plus 80. First Order Upper Grade Talisman Maker, 80/1000. Water Spirit Root Qualification plus 80. Upper Grade Water Spirit Root, 1000 can be broken through. The Water Spiritual Root can also break through. Yi Ba muttered. Without the slightest hesitation, he chose to break through immediately. Click. In his mind, it seemed like shackles had been opened, and his mind became clearer and more transparent. The perception of the surrounding water aura was also sharper. This was all the benefit that came from an increase in spiritual root qualification. In addition to this, his cultivation of various water-based spells or techniques would also be smoother. Yi Ba sat down on his knees, took out the spirit-gathering pill and swallowed it before starting to cultivate. After his qualifications were upgraded, his cultivation speed became much faster. Coupled with the assistance of various spirit pills, he was able to gain great benefits from his daily cultivation. At this rate, he would soon be able to make another breakthrough. As for the boundary-breaking pill that Chu Waste had given him, he did not intend to take it now. However, it would not be too late to take it after his realm had risen to the 8th level of chi cultivation. This will maximize the usefulness of this Dan. After all, the higher the realm, the slower the rate of improvement. Taking it at the 8th level of chi cultivation would undoubtedly save him a great deal of time. Chapter 35, Part of the Truth of the Spirit Slave Trial. Yiba spent his days cultivating and assisting the female devil in her cultivation. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. On this day, he practiced as usual. Suddenly, the aura on his body shook violently, raising several times. Finally a breakthrough, Yiba uttered in surprise as he sensed the expansion of the Dantian within his body. Half a month to break through a small realm. This was something he had never even dared to imagine before. Today, he does it easily. If he hadn't assisted the 4 girls in their cultivation, it would have delayed him quite a bit. He could even break through faster. Yiba looked at his own panel. Name, Yiba. Physique, Supreme Yang Immortal Body, Immortal Grade. Sword Spirit Body, Wonderful Grade. 9 Suns Extreme Vein, Wonderful Grade. Realm, 6th level of Chi Refining. Qualifications, Superior Water Spiritual Root, Superior Earth Spiritual Root, Superior Fire Spiritual Root, Superior Gold Spiritual Root, Medium Wood Spiritual Root. Talent, none. Avatar, 5 Elements Formation Center. Alchemy, 1st Order Upper Grade. Talisman Making, 2nd Order Lower Grade. Formation Technique, 2nd Order Medium Grade, 200/4000. Technique, Great Ultimate Bliss Taoist Technique. Spells, none. In addition to the increase in his cultivation, he had also gained quite a few other benefits while assisting the 4 women in their cultivation. His talisman making skill was upgraded to the lower grade of the 2nd rank. The formation technique had also reached the middle grade of the 2nd rank. In addition, the 5 elements formation art avatar had been activated by him in passing some time ago. He wasn't at all worried about these physiques or divine abilities he had activated being discovered. Because of his own awakened physique, other people simply couldn't discover it. The system took these stolen physiques and covered them up somehow. Only his own self-contained Supreme Yang Immortal Body could possibly be discovered. It was only when he performed these aptitudes that he could be recognized. But in his current situation, he couldn't use the 5 elements formation heart avatar at all, because even if they used it, they wouldn't be able to escape the great ultimate immortal sect. The last and most rewarding thing for him was that he had finally established primary subordination between him and Deng Xiaohan. No need to worry about Deng Xiaohan plotting against him. Just as he was pondering, the teleportation array glowed brightly. Chu Waste in which to step out. At this time, she had also broken through to the 9th level of Chi cultivation. Her master teacher was seeking the foundation building pill from the Dan Hall for her. Once she obtained the foundation establishment pill, she would be able to attempt foundation establishment. Chu Waste's face was clearly colored with joy. She quickly stepped in front of Yiba. Senior brother, I asked about some news about the spirit slave trial. Yiba's eyes lit up instantly, coming to life. What is it? He had instructed Chu Waste to inquire about this aspect since half a month ago, and now he finally had feedback. I learned from a foundation establishment sister that the spirit slave trial doesn't seem to be as simple as it seems, Chu Waste said in a deep voice. Under Yiba's gaze, Chu Waste continued. Throughout the years, the largest number of participants in the spirit slave trials have been the Chi practicing stage stove tripods, but their pass rate has been extremely low, and basically it's the foundation establishment stage stove tripods that have passed the trials. Now there are less than 2 years until the next spirit slave trial. Yiba nodded his head. He was confident that he would break through to foundation establishment in 2 years' time. In addition, the spirit slave trial is assessed by way of dreams, and the specifics of the assessment are not very clear to that senior sister. And by passing the spirit slave trial, you will be able to lift the heart-piercing spell, and in the end, it's the spirit slave's own decision whether to stay or go. However, in the end, that senior sister said something taboo at the end. Chu Waste's tone lowered a few notches. Yiba looked at her suspiciously. She said that the fate and end of these spirit slaves was predetermined the moment they entered the clan. Just moths to a flame. I wanted to pursue the matter, but it's reluctant to go on, and hinted that I should not ask about these things carelessly in the future, as it would invite trouble. Chu Waste said in a deep voice. Yiba's heart sank. Is it a moth to a flame? It seems like there are many hidden secrets in this spirit slave trial. With Chu Waste's current status and position, he couldn't even ask for anything more detailed. I know. Yiba nodded lightly. The mood of the heart was not very optimistic. Besides the spirit slave trial, is there any other way to undo the heart-piercing curse? He inquired. There are 2 kinds. One is to break through to the Jindan stage and become a guest minister of the clan. and the patriarch will personally lift the heart-piercing curse for them. The second is to perform great feats in the sect, and will also be released from the heart-piercing spell and let the spirit slaves go. Chu Waste opened his mouth to explain. Before coming here, she had already organized all the information she could inquire about. Yi Ba's heart was sinking more and more. Of the two, the former is not something that can be achieved in a short period of time. The latter requires a hit of luck. None of it suits him today. It's better to prioritize participating in the spirit slave trial. Yi Ba finally determined it in his heart. But before that, he had to figure out what other hidden secrets there were in the spirit slave trial. Since he couldn't be informed of more information at Chu Waste's level, then find a higher status female demon. If 2 years wasn't enough time to take down the demoness, he could also wait another 6 years. Anyway, with Goldfinger in hand, he was not panicking at all. In a word, steady. This is not a matter to be rushed. Rushing makes it easy to make mistakes. He then mentally mulled over the appropriate demoness. It's best to choose from a network of relationships with the 4 women around him to make it easier to get started. Peak Master is a Jid and cultivator. No way. Elder of the Law Enforcement Hall? It can be considered. Formation Hall Elder can also be considered. Suddenly, Yi Ba thought of an incomparably suitable candidate. Chi Hongyue's mom, Qilan. Qilan was an elder of the Formation Hall, and his status was much higher than that of a disciple. In addition, Qilan was Chi Hongyue's mother, and was also Deng Xiahan's master teacher. With the 2 women playing support, he wanted to take Xiren and turn him into a submissive. Undoubtedly it will be much simpler, but before that, he needed to turn Chi Hongyue into a high-level slave first. Senior Sister Chu, when you go back, continue to investigate this aspect of the news, but also pay attention to yourself. Don't be noticed by people with an axe to grind. Yi Ba admonished. I understand. Chu Waste nodded in agreement, but had no intention of leaving immediately. Where did Yi Ba not understand what Chu Waste meant? Immediately, he brought her to the house and assisted in her cultivation. Chu Waste possessed a sun and moon spiritual body, and the benefits of this type of physique were in addition to being able to absorb the essence of the sun and moon to cultivate. You can also make your own temperature change with your heart. It is no problem to be hot for a while and cool for a while, or even hot and cool at the same time. Chapter 36, Talent, 1000 Tides of Enchanting Bones. Spirit Slave Hall, Inner Sanctum. Chi Hongyue looked at the second-order mid-grade talisman she had just drawn on the table, her face full of joy. Today, after she had purchased a second-order mid-grade Spirit Fox pen and a bunch of second-order mid-grade talisman paper, she had gathered all the things she needed to draw a second-order mid-grade talisman spell. She immediately began to try to refine a second-rank mid-grade Thunderbolt talisman. Of course, key divine objects were added within the Spirit Ink. In the end, she actually succeeded in refining it, and it's still a 100% success rate. A second-order mid-grade Thunderbolt talisman was already capable of inflicting damage on a cultivator in the middle stage of foundation establishment. However, she failed when she was drawing the Een Water talisman, which was also of the middle grade of the second rank. To summarize, Een attribute talismans could not be drawn. With a 100% failure rate, it should be related to the attributes of the divine artifacts. In addition, the divine artifacts are almost used up. It's only fair to go and collect some more. Chi Hongyue murmured and walked towards the teleportation array inside the house. With a flash of light, its figure disappeared into it. By the time it reappeared, it was already inside the cave. Inside the cave, Yi Ba, who heard the commotion, looked up. There was a flash of color in his eyes. Chi Hongyue's talisman-making rank had unexpectedly risen again. Is its talent in talisman-making so great? Yi Ba was secretly shocked. 4 hours later, Chi Hongyue's cultivation ended. At the same time, a system prompt appeared in front of Yi Ba's eyes. Rune Road Experience plus 80. Second order lower grade talisman maker, 80/4000. Advanced affiliation established. Chi Hongyu hidden talent / physical firmness in. Identification complete. Talent, 1000 Tides of Enchanting Bones. Is it bestowed? Talent, 1000 Tide Charming Bone. Emperor grade, exclusive talent for female cultivators. Possessor is born with Charming Bone. Body watery, natural bonus to the power of any type of charm art practiced. She is naturally close to water-based aura, and when practicing, she can induce her own aura to undulate like waves, like 1000 tides surging, which makes it more efficient to take in yang qi and transform it into her own aura, and at the same time, she can choose to feed back to the aura tide. The high-level subordinate has finally been established. Yi Ba raised his eyebrows slightly as he read the prompt. From now on, except for the matter of letting Chi Hongyu die a certain death, it's going to be completely at his command. The plan to take down Zealand can finally be put on the agenda. In addition, Chi Hongyue had developed a hidden talent after becoming a senior slave, and it's still imperial. It was the same grade as Chu Waste's sun and moon spiritual body. You can see how precious it is. Bestow. Yiba said in a deep voice in his heart. In the next second, Chi Hongyue, who was sitting on the side and cultivating, suddenly realized that a large amount of ice-cold water was gushing out from various parts of her body. At first she thought it was an illusion, but after careful perception, she realized that it was actually something that really happened. What situation? Chi Hongyue was surprised in her heart. She hurriedly looked inside herself and realized that these cold water streams were moisturizing her skin and flesh as well as the meridians in various parts of her body. Her skin is more hydrated and her muscles are more elastic. As that stream of water continued to wash over her, her meridians became much tougher. It can hold more spiritual energy. I'm awakening my talent? After feeling the changes in her body clearly, Chi Hongyue was pleasantly surprised. Suddenly, her eyes lit up, thinking back to when Chu Waste awakened his physique. With Chu Waste's qualifications, the probability of awakening the physique was extremely small. At that time, she suspected a relationship with Yiba. Now it seemed that she had guessed correctly. Something similar was happening to her body now. On the side, Yiba carefully sized up Chi Hongyue. The aura on its body was found to be changing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Just by sitting there was a strong charm emanating at all times. It made Yiba have the urge to get Chi Hongyue immediately. What a bully! Yiba was surprised and hastily averted his gaze. A moment later, the changes on Chi Hongyue's body finally ended. She opened her eyes and her gaze towards Yiba changed significantly. Doubtfully, he spoke. Senior brother, I just awakened my talent. Is it because of you? Senior sister has awakened her talent? Yiba pretended to be surprised. Although he had already established a high-level subordination with Chi Hongyue. However, he still did not intend to tell Chi Hongyue his secret. For one thing, Chi Hongyue didn't need to know. Secondly, although it was a senior subordinate, it wasn't as if Chi Hongyue would necessarily keep secrets. In case someone threatened her life, Chi Hongyue would still tell all about him. Chi Hongyue suspiciously looked at Yiba twice. In the bottom of his heart, he muttered, could it be that senior brother really doesn't know anything? That's right, senior brother doesn't even know what kind of physique he has, and it's normal for him not to be aware of how powerful his physique is. Chi Hongyue felt that it was reasonable for Yiba to be unaware of the situation. Aha! She nodded and explained, I have indeed awakened a talent. However, the grade and specific function of the talent is not clear enough for me at the moment, and I need to go through the clan's canonical books later to confirm it. Congratulations, senior sister. This must be the result of senior sister's usual hard work. Yiba responded with a smile. Chi Hongyue blushed, thinking that Yiba was molesting her, but instead of being angry, she was even a little bit pleased in the back of her mind. Chi Hongyue's shy appearance made Yiba's eyes go straight. Secretly, I can't stand it. Senior brother, is senior sister beautiful? Chi Hongyue couldn't help but feel a little funny when she saw Yiba's appearance. Beautiful, Yiba replied subconsciously. He's turned into a little head thinker now. As he spoke, he took the initiative to move towards Chi Hongyue. Right now, he was in a state that was worse than being hit by the confusion mist. The entire person's mind had been mesmerized by Chi Hongyue. Chi Hongyue, who was praised by Yiba, was even more joyful in her heart. Facing Yiba, she actually didn't avoid it, and leaned in. Yiba tightly hugged Chi Hongyue, whose body exuded a faint fragrance that made him incomparably addicted. He was totally immersed. By the time Yiba regained consciousness, it was discovered that Chi Hongyue had actually left at some point. My cultivation? Yiba looked inside himself and was surprised to find that the aura within his dantian had grown a lot, knowing that it was the influence of Chi Hongyue's talent that fed the spirit tide, causing his cultivation level to increase significantly. In the future, I have to cultivate more with Chi Hongyue, Yiba secretly said. In this way, his cultivation speed would be accelerated once again. Chapter 37, Good Things Should Be Shared. 3 days later, Chi Hongyue once again came to the cave. Its face wore an uncontrollable look of joy. She had confirmed her own awakened talent by going through the canonical books. Surprisingly, it was the Thousand Tides enchanting bone of the Imperial grade. She was simply thrilled to learn the news. It also made her even more convinced that it was entirely because of Yiba that she was able to activate her talent. The Thousand Tides enchanting bone talent, which increases the speed of ingesting yang qi and transforming aura, as well as the option to feed back the aura tied to the yang qi donor. There are great benefits for both sides. She came over here today just to cultivate with Yiba. With such an extreme talent, she couldn't wait to spend time with Yiba every day, still even eating. After half a day, the two Yiba stopped to rest. During the process of cultivation, Chi Hongyue also took the initiative to inform Yiba of her own talent. Senior brother, your physique is strong. You can help others awaken their physique or talent. Am I that powerful? Yiba pretended to be surprised. Well, your yang qi is top-notch stuff. Chi Hongyue nodded her head. Since it's a good thing, then good things should know how to be shared. Let me go and assist the other fellow disciples in their cultivation. Yiba smoothly proposed. Shi Hongyu was subconsciously about to refuse, but she held back her words as they reached her mouth. Turning to him, he said, "Senior brother's character is truly noble. I wonder what exactly senior brother is going to do. Fertilizer does not flow to outsiders. I have the best relationship with senior sister. So let's start with the people closest to senior sister." Yiba smiled. Then in a commanding tone, he said, "Senior sister, I want to assist your mother in her cultivation, but I don't want your mother to keep me all to herself. What's your best solution?" "My mother?" Shi Hongyue's eyes widened in surprise. If it was in the past, Shi Hongyu would have refused at the first moment when she heard Yiba say so, but now, it's already a senior subordinate of Yiba. Subconsciously, he would follow Yiba's orders. Shi Hongyue fell into deep thought. Her mother was a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator, so using strong-arm tactics would definitely not work. Also, her mother has a very strong personality and coercion is not advisable. The last thing she could think of was to swindle, but the swindle was a bit unsafe. In case her mother found a loophole, Yiba would be in danger. When the time came for Yiba to be monopolized by her mother, it would be difficult for her to even think of having a mouthful of soup. "The only way I can think of is to swindle my mother, but there are certain risks," Shi Hongyue responded. "Expand on that." Yiba frowned. "I can inform my mother about my awakening of my talent as bait to get her to take the bait. Afterward, I'll fabricate your mysterious identity, so that she'll be too scrupulous to reveal this matter." Shi Hongyue spoke out her preliminary plan. She looked at Yiba with some apprehension, waiting for the result. "Not bad, but not safe enough." Yiba nodded. "You can make her take the Heavenly Tao Oath of keeping secrets and not harming me." The Heavenly Tao Oath. Why didn't I think of that? Shi Hongyue's face was delighted. As long as a heavenly oath was made, it would be impossible for the mother to break it for the sake of the path of cultivation. "I'll go back and do this right away," Shi Hongyue solemnly said. "Well, the heavenly Tao Oath must be rigorous and not allow it to exploit the loopholes," Yiba admonished. "Don't worry, there will be no mistakes." Shi Hongyue nodded her head. Then he got up and left. Yiba stared at Shi Hongyue's back and felt that the probability of this matter succeeding should be very high. For a female devil, it was very difficult to resist the temptation of the Supreme Yang physique, not to mention his kind, the Supreme Yang immortal body that could help stimulate the hidden physique. There was no way that Xylan was going to be unmoved. Not long after Shi Hongyue left, Chu Waste appeared from within the teleportation array. She had the same look of joy on her face. It was only because her master teacher had given her a top-grade foundation building pill today, she could finally attempt to build a foundation. She came over to Yiba's place in the first place, wanting its assistance in building her foundation. "Senior brother, can you help me?" Chu Waste asked after explaining the situation to Yiba. "Of course, I will always stand behind senior sister." Yiba nodded his head. Once Chu Waste's strength increased, he could do more for him. He was naturally happy to help Chu Waste. By helping Chu Waste, he's helping himself. Aha! Chu Waste looked at Yiba gratefully. Then together with Yiba, they entered her house. Without any unnecessary words, Chu Waste quickly entered the cultivation state. After its own state is adjusted to its best and the benefits are sucked up, she finally swallowed the top-grade foundation building pill in her hand. The elixir melts in your mouth. It turned into a hot stream that surged into her abdomen and eventually turned into a huge medicinal power that dispersed into her meridians. It converged towards the dantian at the small of her abdomen. Under the effect of the foundation building pill, the aura within her dantian began to liquefy. Chu Waste operated his gong method, using the power of his own soul plus the help of the foundation establishment pill to forcefully compress the aura, to liquefy it. But apparently, she had underestimated the difficulty of building a foundation. Right off the bat, it was a bit of a struggle, and it became more and more obvious as time went on. Is it going to fail? Chu Waste frowned. The aura within her dantian was about to go out of control, but just as she was about to give up, a thick aura surged into her dantian. This power was even more domineering than the foundation establishment pill. It was actually rapidly compressing and liquefying the aura, one that didn't require her to use much force at all. Everything is watertight. The aura in her body rapidly liquefied. It took only a few minutes for all the liquefaction to be completed. Boom! The moment her aura completely liquefied within her dantian, a powerful aura emanated from her body. She succeeded in building her foundation. Moreover, it's still perfectly constructed. Chu Waste was ecstatic. She fiercely hugged Yiba and fiercely kissed him. Gratefully, he said, "Thank you, senior brother. Senior brother has helped me a lot. Senior sister is not required to be polite." Yiba smiled and wiped the drool off his face. He was also happy that Chu Waste was able to successfully build his foundation. After being mushy with Yiba for a while, Chu Waste finally controlled his emotions. After greeting Yiba, she left the cave. She couldn't wait to tell her master teacher the good news. Back to the residence. Shu Waist had wanted to go directly to see the master, but as if she had suddenly sensed something, she looked out through the formation suspiciously. Shiro had come near her place at some point, sneaking around there, thieving and not knowing what they want. Shu Waist frowned. During these days, the white dragon came to hang around near her place every now and then. And sneaky behavior. Could it be that he discovered my secret? Shu Waist muttered in his heart, feeling the need to investigate. Chapter 38, Chi Hanyue, Mother, I'm doing this for your own good. Inside the formation hall's main hall, Chi Hanyue stood at the bottom and looked up at Qilan, who was sitting above her. Qilan white light veil covering the body, skin and clothes between the fit, very seductive. The gold ring on his ankle rang out pleasantly as he swayed lightly on his bicep. Greetings to Mother. Chi Hanyue bowed and saluted. Are you still confused in terms of cultivation recently? Qilan took a bite of the purple spirit fruit on the plate and sent it into her mouth, softly inquiring, or maybe it's a lack of spirit stoneflowers? This daughter of hers, if she didn't have anything to do on weekdays, she wouldn't come over to her of her own accord. If you're suddenly coming over today, you must have something to do. Chi Hanyue was stunned. When had her mother become so concerned about her? Could it be because she had solved the matter of the 9 Jedi vein, making it think that she could still cultivate it? That thought flashed through her mind. Afterward, she looked at the 2 spirit slaves behind Qilan and spoke. Mother, can you let them out for a moment? I have something to say to Mother. Qilan was surprised and stopped eating the spirit fruit. After giving Chi Hanyue a deep look, he waved his hand behind him. Get out! The 2 spirit slaves lowered their heads and quickly exited the great hall. What is it? Say it, Qilan said in a faint voice. She hadn't guessed wrong. Luna did have something for her. Can Mother open the isolation array? This matter can only be known to you and me. Chi Hanyue continued. Qilan looked at Chi Hanyue in confusion. Can't guess what it's really going to say. Frowning, he said, this is my place. There won't be anyone coming over here who isn't open-minded, so just say what you want to say. Mother might as well open the isolation spell formation. I have a heavenly good thing to share with Mother. Chi Hanyue's expression was incomparably serious. After seeing that Chi Hanyue did not look like she was joking and seemed to really have something important to say, Qilan finally nodded. Its pinch struck out towards the top of the great hall. Buzz! A rune lit up around the hall, eventually covering the entire hall. What the hell? Xylan's curiosity rose to the top. Before I say anything about this matter, I hope that Mother can make a heavenly Tao oath that no matter what I say below, Mother must not speak to a third person. Chi Hanyue, however, did not rush to speak. Qilan's eyes stared as he said in a deep voice, heavenly Tao oaths cannot be made haphazardly. Mother, this matter is related to me solving the 9 Jepels. Don't you want to know? Chi Hanyue threw out the first bait. Xylan frowned. She was very curious indeed. She had checked Yuer's physique many times and knew how difficult it was for her to resolve the effects of the 9 absolute vein. It takes a lot of pure yang qi to do that. Originally, this kind of thing was impossible to fix. She had estimated that she would need at least a myriad grade or above supreme young spirit slave to be effective, and there was no way to obtain a spirit slave with this kind of physique, even with her ability. After a few moments of contemplation, she finally failed to resist her own curiosity. In front of Chi Hanyue, he made a heavenly Tao oath. Everything Yuer said to me today, I won't tell it to a third person. If I violate this oath, the path will be broken. Can we talk now? Thank you, Mother, for trusting Yuer. Chi Hanyue was secretly happy inside, and after thanking her, she continued, my 9 extinct vein was actually resolved with the help of a mysterious senior. It has a top-notch supreme young physique, which not only helped me solve the hidden problem of the 9 extinct vein, but also directly helped me break through to my current realm. Mysterious senior, top-tier supreme young physique? Qilan was stunned. These things sound more or less nebulous, and I came over this time because I wanted to introduce Mother to that senior. My mother has been working hard for many years for my sake, and she is still stuck at the foundation establishment stage until now. Yuer saw it in her eyes, and it was very difficult in her heart, and it was only after she begged the senior bitterly that she was finally given this opportunity. Chi Hanyue struck the iron while it was hot and said, it's like a mother-daughter thing. Qilan frowned, subconsciously feeling that there was something odd about this matter. How could a mysterious senior suddenly approach his daughter, and offered to help? In the world of chi refiners, she believed even more in the principle of mutual benefit. Someone who is nice to you for no reason is bound to have some other agenda, and the way Yuer looked, it was obvious that she had been tricked. It might even be that it's been drugged with something mesmerizing. Qilan pondered a bit and asked tentatively, how much do you know about this senior? Senior is very nice and easygoing, and helps with cultivation with great effort. Chi Hanyue's cheeks blushed slightly as she said this. And he doesn't want anything from you? Xiren asked rhetorically. This is so not normal. My guess is that Senior may have seen that I have latent talent. Chi Hanyue spoke in a deep voice. She had rehearsed many possible accidents at her residence to convince her mother. She had also prepared her words for the questions that Xiren might ask. Latent talent? Xilen was even more puzzled. Aha! Chi Honyue nodded her head. My latent talent is the Imperial Grade Thousand Tides of Enchanting Bone. However, with Senior's help, I have awakened the Thousand Tides Enchanting Bone. An Emperor Grade talent. Chi Lan's eyes widened in incomparable shock. The effects that the talents and physiques of the Emperor's products could bring about wouldn't differ by much, and it mainly depended on the specific type of talent and physique. What you said is true. Chi Lan's feet clicked and flew to Chi Honyue with an agitated expression on her face. Of course, if mother doesn't believe me, she can check for herself. Chi Honyue said confidently. Chi Lan had wanted to do this for a long time, and without saying a word, she directly reached out and put her hand on Chi Honyue's shoulder. Several strands of cold aura drilled into her meridians, Dan Tian, and Sea of Consciousness. It took a full 10 minutes of probing before Chi Lan finally withdrew his hand, but her frown deepened. Yu's body did have traces of an awakened talent, and that talent was strong. It's supposed to be the Thousand Tide Winx Bone. However, she saw no signs of being mesmerized within Yu's Sea of Consciousness. In other words, Moon says things from the heart. Of course, it could also be that the other party's technique was too clever for her cultivation level to detect. Yu'er, was it that senior who asked you to find me? Chi Lan asked in a deep voice. Chi Honyue shook her head. No mother, it was me who begged the senior before he agreed. Daughter, I now have an Emperor Grade talent, and my future path to immortality will go very far. I don't want to be alone. Even more so, I don't want to watch my mother's cultivation fail to rise and end up with an old red face. Chi Honyue's tone was incomparably sincere. Half of that was coming from her heart. Xilen moved. She subconsciously stroked her cheek. Although she was a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator, her lifespan was only 200 years, and she had been stuck in the late stage of Foundation establishment for 20 years, still seeing no hope of achieving Jiedan. Chi Lan was a bit moved, but still had doubts. You just said that senior saw your latent talent? What does that mean? My Heavenly Dynasty Enchanting Bone talent not only enhances the speed at which I absorb Yang Qi, but also helps the other party speed up their cultivation, Chi Honyue explained. Xilen's eyes lit up, which made perfect sense. Mother, this is the opportunity I begged for you with great difficulty. In case you don't believe me, I even brought a bit of that divine object. Chapter 39 is really a divine object. Divine object? What divine object? Chi Lan looked at Chi Honyue in confusion. Under his gaze, Chi Honyue mysteriously took out a large jade bottle from within her storage bag. The jade bottle was half a man tall, and had talisman paper attached to it. This was to prevent the loss of the spiritual power of the divine object inside the jade bottle. That way the effect is diminished. Mother will know when she looks at it. Chi Honyue tore open the talisman paper on it with some heartache. These had taken her a lot of time to collect. Now it's all cheaper for the mother. But in order to fulfill Yiba's command, she could only do so. The big deal is that I'll have to work harder to collect it afterward. Chi Honyue murmured in her heart. Curious, Chi Lan opened the cork of the bottle and saw the contents as well as smelled the familiar odor. She was stunned. Naturally she recognized what it was. It wasn't the thing that surprised me, but the spiritual power it contained. It's too much. There are simply too many. If she can use this to practice day by day. Chi Lan's heart was agitated. Its slender wrist flicked, and the jade bottle was instantly rolled up by her. Chi Lan brought the jade bottle back to the side couch above him, and the moment he sat down with his knees crossed, he began to operate the swallowing dragon skill of Taiku to cultivate. Inside the jade bottle, strands of spiritual energy were ingested by her, entering through the small opening and being absorbed by her meridians, eventually converging in her dantian. A large amount of aura poured inside her dantian. It was like the fields had been in a drought for a long time, bringing her dantian back to life. The dantian chi si, which was originally somewhat silent, was flooded with waves at this moment, and as she continued to cultivate, it became more and more obvious. Rumble, her entire dantian was vibrating. In the midst of this violent vibration, she had actually touched a hint of the edge of Jiedan. Just as she was about to reach out and grab it, her dantian returned to calm. No! Chi Lan subconsciously exclaimed. She opened her eyes and looked at the jade bottle in disappointment. The contents had been consumed by her. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. The stuff is gone. The people are still there. As long as that senior helps, she can definitely break through to the Jiedan stage. She flew down and came in front of Chi Honyue once again. Grabbing Chi Honyue's arm, she said excitedly, "Yu'er, quickly take me to see that senior." Mother believes what I said? Chi Honyue blinked. I'll believe anything you say now. Xilen nodded seriously. Compared to conjugation, other things were not worth mentioning at all. No matter how that senior was, as long as she could help her break through the Jiedan. Cultivators for chance. For breakthroughs, There are not a few who are willing to be slaves and servants. And the senior in Yuer's mouth didn't ask for anything. In other words, this is what you begged for her. Why wouldn't she use it? Although she still had some misgivings about this senior, she didn't care for the sake of breaking through the Jiedan. Daily cultivation is not allowed to progress by an inch. And he looks at himself in the mirror and watches himself gradually aging and becoming ugly. She didn't want to end her monasticism like that. She's going to go farther. Mother, I know you're in a hurry, but I have to set a time with that senior, so you'll have to wait for me for a few days. Chi Hongyue, however, did not immediately agree. She intended to keep fishing for her mother's appetite. When it could no longer hold back, it would be much smoother to bring up the matter of making it take other heavenly Tao oaths. A couple days? That long? Xylan frowned. She didn't want to wait a second. Wanted to start practicing right away. Mother, you can't eat hot tofu in a hurry. Besides, the senior's time is very tight. It's not something we can eat just because we want to. Chi-hon, you persuaded. If this angers senior, it will not be good. Shilan was slightly silent and gritted his teeth. You have a point. I'll wait here for your news. Yuer, don't keep me waiting. Don't worry, mother, Chi Honyue assured. Then, under Chilan's fond gaze, he left the great hall, returning towards the spirit slave hall at the bottom of the mountain. The corners of his mouth gradually curled into a smile. Things have been largely successful up to this point. Inside the residence, she activated the teleportation array and came inside the cave, telling Yiba what he had just done. Well done. The corner of Yiba's mouth hooked into a smile. Xylan has bitten the hook, and the next thing you know, it's time to reel in the line. Senior brother, I did such a good job. Should I be rewarded? Chi Hongyue approached Yiba. Reward you for what? Yiba asked knowingly. I've wasted a lot of my savings to convince my mother. Chi Hongyue looked at Yiba pitifully. Senior sister, pick yourself up. 4 days later, under Chi Hongyue's repeated urging, Chilan finally came to Chi Hongyue's residence in the formation hall once again. Upon seeing Chilan's arrival, Chi Hongyue immediately turned on the protective formation, isolating the inner and outer parts of the Great Hall. As for the disciples within the Great Hall, they had all been driven away by her. Yuer, is there any news from Senior? Chi Hongyue stepped forward and asked eagerly. I've been begging Senior for several days, and today Senior has finally agreed. Chilan nodded. She kind of despised her mother for her unseemly appearance. Her mother didn't know what to expect if she actually practiced on it. I'm ready to go over at any time. Chi Hongyue pulled Chilan and was about to leave the Great Hall. However, Chilan didn't move, but continued. But before I take mother there are still some things I need to make clear to you. Chi Hongyue frowned. You say, for the past 3 days, she had been tormented daily with flashbacks and had nearly gone off the deep end. Now she was not going to wait a moment longer. First, mother shall not secretly probe or divulge all information about Senior. Secondly, mother must not do anything to harm Senior. Not even the thought of harm. The above 2 points require the mother to take a heavenly oath. No problem. Chilan nodded his head and swore the heavenly Tao oath in front of Chi Hongyue. Even the oath was sworn with more rigor than Chi Hongyue had said. It seemed as if he was afraid that Chi Hongyue would not be satisfied and would back out. Mother, let's go. Chi Hongyue nodded her head in satisfaction and led Chilan towards her residence. Soon, the duo arrived at the Spirit Slave Hall. Chilan was puzzled in his heart. Could it be the seniors of the Spirit Slave Hall? She had once heard a senior uncle say that the Spirit Slave Hall seemed to have some top-tier spirit slaves. It was only that it would not be taken out on weekdays. Only waiting for a disciple to make a breakthrough at a critical moment and needing to use it would it be taken out and used. The two of them walked into Chi Hongyue's residence. Chi Hongyue closed the door and opened the formation outside. He then took out the array disc from within his storage bag and set it up on the ground. As a third-order lower-grade formation master, Chilan naturally recognized this as a short-range teleportation spell formation at a glance. Not in the Spirit Slave Hall? Or underground in the Spirit Slave Hall? The doubts in Chilan's heart increased, but she took a heavenly oath not to pry any information. These questions can only be pushed to the back of the mind. Mother, come up here. After setting up the teleportation spell, Chi Hongyue greeted Chilan and stood on the teleportation spell together. After a flash of light, both of their figures also instantly disappeared. Chapter 40. Don't be greedy. Here, Chilan stepped out of the teleportation formation and looked at everything in front of him. The place where she was now should be a cave. There was a formation covering the outside of the cave, and her divine sense was unable to probe out of it, thus not knowing where you are. Mother, Senior is there. Chi Hongyue pointed to a house within the cave with the character Chi engraved on it. This house originally belonged to her. Now it's sort of on loan to her mother. Chilan followed Chi Hongyue's finger to look, spotted Yiba standing at the entrance of the house. Yiba's face wore a pitch-black mask that covered the entirety of his face. Chilan didn't dare to probe with his divine sense, and could only observe the figure and aura through the naked eye. However, It did not find anything special about Yiba. Senior, this is my mother, Qilan. Qi Hongyue brought Qilan to Yiba. Greetings, Senior. Qilan bowed respectfully. Aha! Yiba nodded lightly. A message from Xilan automatically surfaced in front of his eyes. Name, Qilan. Physique, Fire Beauty. King's body, King's grade, disabled. Realm, late foundation stage. Qualification, excellent fire root. Talent, none. Avatar, none. Formation technique, lower grade. Third order. Technique, swallowing dragon technique. Spells, advanced charming. Ban breaking, dragon drawing. Fire enchanting. King body? Yiba was a bit surprised. Qilan surprisingly also had a special physique, only it was crippled. However, it had an extreme fire spirit root, so it could provide him with the experience of the fire spirit root and enhance his spirit root qualification. Mother, remember the heavenly Tao oath you made? Qi Hongyue reminded in a low voice. Qilan gently nodded her head, her heart actually a little nervous. She was immensely looking forward to that divine object that would top her to a new realm. I don't have much time, so hurry up. Yiba spoke faintly. Then he turned and laid down on the bed behind him. This is? Qilan was puzzled. Any cultivator who comes to claim a divine object needs to take it themselves, Qi Hongyue said seriously, adding at the end, after all, it's not like the divine objects will flow out on their own. Xilan nodded darkly, approving of this. Mother, go over there, you have to cherish this opportunity and remember not to upset Senior. Qi Hongyue admonished uneasily. I'm doing this for my mother's sake. She hasn't broken through to the Jedan stage for so many years. Without Yiba's help, it would probably be difficult to break through in the future. Qi Hongyue did not feel the slightest bit of guilt for having sent her mother to Yiba's bed, because she did all of this both to fulfill Yiba's account and for the sake of her mother. Aha! Xilan nodded heavily. In the next second, his toes tapped, and between the swaying of the golden ling at his ankle, he came to Yiba's side. The light veil slipped off the fragrant shoulders, showing off delicate collarbones. On its flat belly, there was a flame-like pattern, only that pattern looks mutilated and not aesthetically pleasing at all. Qilan was naturally familiar with cultivation, but it was the first time in front of his own daughter. At first she was a bit formal, but as time went on, she gradually got into the swing of things, and as the divine object surfaced, her entire being grew more and more excited. It really is a divine object. Qilan was shocked in his heart. It was only because her dormant dantian was actually showing signs of revival once again. Waves surged inside, impacting all parts of the dantian, causing her to touch the bottleneck of the Jedan stage once again. I need more. Xilan was completely frantic. At this moment, she was completely immersed in cultivation. For Qi Hongyue, it was directly ignored. They're all women anyway, so it's okay to look. Outside. Formation Hall. Tan Shahan suddenly frowned and put down a formation disc in his hand. Immediately after that, she took out the copper mirror from within her storage bag. The fingers pinched and struck out towards the copper mirror, and the scene inside the cave emerged from within it. Seeing the familiar figure within the cave, Deng Shahan's face was grave. Master. Immediately afterward she gritted her teeth darkly. She couldn't figure out why Qi Hongyue had taken Qilan to the cave. Did it not know that Qilan's cultivation was high, and once she learned of Yiba's existence, it would definitely monopolize Yiba. Qilan might share it with Qi Hongyue, but what about the rest of them? Qi Hongyue really deserves to die. Deng Shahan was very angry. Think quickly in your mind about the solution. Just then, though, doubt showed in her eyes. Qilan actually didn't leave with Yiba, but cultivated right inside the cave. It shouldn't be like this according to reason. Is there something else going on? Deng Shahan secretly said. Even if Xilan was in a hurry, it shouldn't be too bad for a few minutes. Besides, why is Yiba wearing a mask? Deng Shahan, who was puzzled in his mind, intended to continue reading. Find out the truth behind what's going on. 1 hour, 3 hours, 6 hours. Master is really thirsty for knowledge. He hasn't stopped for so long. Deng Shahan frowned straight away. How could she know that at this moment? Qilan was simply going crazy with shock? Because she realized that her crippled physique had actually changed and was being replenished little by little. The flame pattern at her belly was like it was burning up at this moment, flashing with a rich red light. Some of the lines that had broken off at the edges were slowly extending outward at this point. As long as all these lines were extended and connected, her crippled physique would be restored. Only the sight of this tattered pattern on her body reminded her of some bad past. In the beginning, she was also a genius of the sect. However, during an outing, he was swindled by a male cultivator from another clan. And not only did he have a relationship with him, but he also gave birth to Qi Hongyue. Who knew that the male cultivator turned his back and turned around and went to marry a female disciple from another clan? In order to completely destroy her, that man also crippled her physique, cutting off her path to rushing to higher realms. Qi Hongyue looked a bit like that man. Sometimes when she saw Qi Hongyue, she would remember that unpleasant past. This was also the reason why she had been cold or hot towards Chi Hongyu, even ignoring her for years. Nowadays, however, she had the opportunity to restore her physique because of Chi Hongyu. Thinking of this, she cultivated even more vigorously. At the same time, his heart was somewhat shocked at the true cultivation of the senior below. Her own realm was the peak of the late stage of foundation establishment, and after she had cultivated for most of the day, surprisingly, the senior still didn't have the slightest bit of fatigue. It seemed as though these divine items that he had acquired were just a drop in the ocean to his predecessor, not worth mentioning at all. Almost, as good as the divine objects are, they should not be consumed greedily. Right at this moment, Yi Ba suddenly opened his mouth. Chapter 41, Quickly kneel down and thank Elder. Hearing Yi Ba's order, Qilan subconsciously stopped, but couldn't leave. This kind of divine thing, even if she was sleeping and resting, she would want to enjoy it in her sleep. Cough. Mother, don't lose your temper. Chi Hongyu lightly coughed to remind, and gave Xiren a wink. Qilan was a million times more reluctant, but after thinking that he could continue to come over and cultivate in the future, he still stood up. Her mind and body were left with a void, and she couldn't wait to be able to continue practicing, completing her crippled physique completely. Mother, quickly kneel down and thank Elder. Xilen was stunned, then reacted immediately. Hastily kneeling down on both knees, he said in a sincere tone, "Thank you, Senior, for bestowing the rain of grace that has benefited Qilan so much." "Well, go." Yi Ba gently waved his hand, didn't even look at Qilan. Benefits can't be given too much at once. They have to be given little by little to completely hook Xilen. "Senior, I don't know how long it will be before I can cultivate with you again." Qilan, however, did not stand up, but continued to kneel on the ground, looking up at Yi Ba. However, Yi Ba no longer paid attention to Qilan. Seeing this, Chi Hongyu, who was on the side, hurriedly stepped forward to pull Qilan up. "Mother, it's time to go. I'll get you the chance to train again later." Qilan's heart was filled with resentment, but there was nothing to be done. He could only helplessly leave with Chi Hongyu. After the two left, Yi Ba took a long breath. Worthy of being a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator, his cultivation speed was so fast that it shocked him, but it's no use going any faster. He, Yi Ba, never dries up. A smirk curled the corners of his mouth immediately afterward. Now that this was the case, it had already been considered that Chi Hongyu had been taken down for the time being. However, in order not to make it suspicious, it was best to establish a primary subordinate before trying to ask it about the spirit slave trial. He looked to the panel that automatically popped up in front of him. Formation Path Experience plus 200. Second Order Medium Formation Master, 800/4000. Fire Root Qualification plus 200. Upper Grade Fire Spirit Root, 200/1000. Name, Yi Ba. Physique, Supreme Yang Immortal Body, Immortal Grade. Sword Spirit Body, Wonderful Grade. Nine Suns Extreme Vein, Wonderful Grade. Realm, 6th level of Chi Refining. Qualifications, Excellent Water Spiritual Roots, Excellent Earth Spiritual Roots, Superior Fire Spiritual Roots, 200/1000. Superior Gold Spiritual Roots, Medium Wood Spiritual Roots. Talent, none. Avatar, 5 Elements Formation Center. Alchemy, 1st Order Upper Grade. Talisman Making, 2nd Order Lower Grade, 280/4000. Formation Technique, 2nd Order Medium Grade, 800/4000. Technique, Great Ultimate Bliss Taoist Technique. Spells, none. Yi Ba was slightly disappointed. Originally, he had expectations for Qilan's Fire Enchanting King Body. Now it seems that with a crippled physique, there is no way for him to gain experience from it. Formation Hall. Tang Shahan saw that the master teacher he feared was kneeling in front of Yi Ba and wagging his tail. A great sense of contrast filled her. This was a completely different person from the usual high and mighty master teacher. It turns out that high and mighty look is all pretense. The current master is the real look of master. Tang Shahan coldly snorted. After watching Chi Hongyu and Qilan leave, Tang Shahan put away the bronze mirror and bowed his head in deep thought. Nowadays, it seemed that Qilan should be unaware of Yi Ba's identity. Moreover, he was quite respectful to Yi Ba, and even performed a kneeling ceremony. The people were brought by Chi Hongyu, so it was only possible that Chi Hongyu had swindled Qilan. But what is its purpose in doing so? Tang Shahan's soulful eyes turned, and he finally planned to go to the cave to see for himself. Yi Ba, who was the person involved, definitely knew something. At the thought, she no longer hesitated. Immediately, he returned to his cave and stepped onto the teleportation array. After the teleportation light flashed, her figure also appeared within the cave. Tang Shahan walked straight towards Yi Ba, who was still lying on the bed. Laughing softly, he said, "Senior brother just enjoyed himself." "Ha, HM?" Yi Ba was startled in his heart and said in shock, "Senior sister can see what's happening inside the cave?" Tang Shahan was stunned and somewhat chagrined. In her excitement, she had actually blurted it out. Humph. The spell formations inside and outside of the cave here were all set up by me. In order to prevent anyone from destroying the spell formations, it's only reasonable that I can observe what's going on inside the cave, isn't it? Tang Xiahan snorted coldly. There's no way she's going to admit to her voyeurism. Yi Ba scoffed at this. No one was going to destroy the formation just now. Shi Hongyue and the others had just left in front of her. When Deng Xiahan came over, obviously, it's been staring at this place the whole time. He didn't realize that Deng Xiahan had a voyeuristic streak. It is very reasonable. Yi Ba nodded lightly. That's for sure. Tun Xiahan responded, and immediately continued. Why did Qilan come over here just now? There's no Qilan among the few of us who are regular cultivators. I need a rational explanation. Yi Ba had already thought of almost all the possibilities before he started his plan. Therefore, in the face of Deng Xiahan's questioning, he didn't panic at all, just faintly answered. Qilan found out about Qi Hongyu coming over to my place. In order to avoid Qilan investigating and alarming too many people, Qi Hongyue could only take the initiative to bring her here. But Qi Hongyue isn't a cutie either, who's packaged me as a mysterious senior. That Qilan sees me as if he were a god. Thus senior sister doesn't have to worry about Qilan's overcultivation and doing something unfavorable to us. Deng Xiahan blinked softly. What Yi Ba said was indeed in line with common sense. But was her master really that easy to swindle? It's really possible. Deng Xiahan said darkly. After all, her master teacher had just shown that lowly look. There's no difference at all between a beggar on the side of the road waiting for a handout. Deng Xiahan put her heart down. As long as it didn't affect her own. Also, in order to avoid you guys from accidentally bumping into each other, I suggest that senior sister also put on a mask to hide her face and breath. Yi Ba kindly urged. In fact, he had the idea of putting masks on everyone else. That way, there was no need to worry about these people recognizing each other, thereby getting into some trouble that he can't control. That's fine. Deng Xiahan nodded. On the premise that it was in his own interest, Deng Xiahan would listen to all of Yi Ba's suggestions. That's the beauty of primary subordination. Of course, in this, Yi Ba would also strive for appropriate benefits for himself. And after successfully taking down Xylan, a bigger plan surfaced in his mind. He planned to use the same method to pull in some other valuable female demons on Red Luan Peak. Of course, it takes one step at a time. Senior sister, my face is just the most ordinary mask. Can senior sister help me get a mask that can conceal my face breath and even my cultivation? That way, my identity will be even less likely to be poked and prodded by Qilan. Yi Ba struck the iron while it was hot. He knew that there were some special spells that could do these requirements. Chapter 42, of course she's satisfied. You've got a good plan. Teng Xiahan laughed softly. If you want to blind Qilan's perception, you need at least a third-order lower-grade magic weapon. And the price isn't cheap. Since senior sister is making it difficult, forget it. Yi Ba shook his head. Deng Xiahan wasn't willing to help him. He could still find someone else. It's not like she's the only one who can hang herself from this tree. Who said I'm not willing? Deng Xiahan winked, his smile playful. Yi Ba looked at her suspiciously. It's fine if you want me to help you. How do you plan to repay me? Deng Xiahan said softly, his gaze shifting downward. Senior sister, you know, other than having one specialty, I'm not worth mentioning at all. Yi Ba spread his hands. I can only do my best to repay senior sister with my specialty. Deng Xiahan's cheeks blushed, although she did mean it. But what Yi Ba said was also too revealing. She held out a finger. Add 1 hour to my original cultivation time. No problem. Yi Ba directly nodded his head. Isn't it just an aid to cultivation? No problem at all. Something he's more than enough of. Then, he looked at Teng Xiahan and realized that he actually had no intention of leaving immediately. At this time, shouldn't Teng Xiahan be turning around to get the spell mask? Senior brother, it just so happens that I have time at this moment. Accompany me to cultivate for a while. Teng Xiahan spoke softly. After looking outside for so long, she had some eye candy of her own. Sure enough, female demons are all alike. They can't walk away when they see him. Yi Ba murmured in his heart. What else could he say? Satisfy her? Of course. Please make yourself at home. Senior sister. Yi Ba returned to the bed and lay down. Speaking softly. Red Luan Peak. The summit. Inside the Peak Master's Hall, Ji Yu, who was seated in the upper seat, looked at Chu Waste below, and a hint of joy and relief appeared in the bottom of her eyes. For you to be able to break through Foundation establishment in just a few days, Master is very happy. If it wasn't for Master bestowed the Foundation establishment pill on my disciple, I wouldn't have been able to break through so quickly. Chu Waste raised his head and responded with a light smile. Modestly, he put most of the credit on Ji Yu. Senior sister Chu, the one bestowed upon you by Master Teacher is the upper grade Foundation establishment pill. I wonder what grade your Foundation establishment is. I think it should be a top grade Foundation establishment, right? Inside the main hall, Ji-Yu's second disciple inquired with seeming curiosity. But as soon as these words came out, Ji-Yu's brows furrowed slightly. From the length of time taken to build the foundation, one could basically tell the grade after building the foundation. Generally speaking, perfect foundation building would take about half a month. Upper grade foundation building about 10 days. Middle grade foundation building about 5 days. And lower grade foundation building about 2 days. Chu Waste had used 3 days to successfully build his foundation, and its high probability was that it was a lower or middle grade foundation. Ji-Yu was not surprised by this. After all, Chu Waste's qualifications were there, only having a medium grade spirit root. At most, it's a mid-grade Tsukiji. Chu Waste's greatest advantage was his own Emperor grade Sun and Moon spirit body. Even if it was a lower grade foundation establishment, his future achievements would not be low. Thus, no matter what grade of foundation building Chu Waste was, Ji-Yu had no intention of blaming him. However, this second disciple of his own seemingly curious inquiry at this moment was somewhat embarrassing to Chu Waste, but Ji-Yu didn't mean to berate him out of his mouth. The cultivation of the mind is also an essential experience. She looked at Chu Waste to see how it would respond. My foundation establishment grade is average. I shouldn't be able to compare to second senior sister's foundation establishment grade, so let's not mention it. Chu Waste's face revealed a hint of difficulty. It looks as if it has low self-esteem and is reluctant to speak up. This further confirmed Sun Yunyang's suspicions. A hint of a smile appeared on his face as he continued to ask. There's no harm in Chu's senior sister speaking out. We're all fellow disciples. Even if your foundation establishment grade isn't high, would we still laugh at you? Second senior sister. Since junior sister doesn't want to talk about it, let's not ask any further. A woman standing next to Sun Yunyang spoke softly. Its face was delicate. Its body was slim, and under its willow leaf eyebrows were a pair of eyes with a hint of sadness. There seems to be an endless amount of sadness in the heart. Third senior sister. You're wrong to say that. I'm also caring for junior sister. Why can't I ask? Sun Yunyang glanced at it and faintly said, even when you were invalidated in the first place, wasn't my attitude towards you the same as before? Could I have the slightest intention of looking down on you? Qinlan's gaze darkened slightly and she bit her lips lightly, only to feel a stabbing pain in her heart. If Sun Yunyang really looked up to her, how could she always bring up her status as a waste? Hadn't she suffered enough? Forget it. It's not the first time second senior sister has said this. Qinlan lowered his head, not wanting to continue. She knew the character of this second elder sister of hers. Arguing with it won't get us anywhere. Second senior sister, do you really want to know my foundation establishment grade? Right at this moment, Chu Waste suddenly spoke out, drawing attention. Of course, as a senior sister, I naturally have to care about every senior sister, Sun Yunyang said with a straight face. She couldn't wait to hear Chu Waste reveal her foundation establishment grade. At that time, he would take the opportunity to reveal his own upper grade of foundation building. It would certainly make the master realize that he was the disciple whose mantle was truly passed on. With Chu Waste's qualifications, it is unworthy. That. Well then, Chu Waste gritted his teeth, and only after a pause of 3 or 4 seconds did he open his mouth again. Actually, I'm a perfect foundation builder. Senior sister can perfectly build a foundation. Sun Yunyang's voice snapped up several times. It shocked to look at Chu Waste, almost suspecting that he had heard wrong. Chu Waste clearly only had a medium-grade spirit root. How could he have perfectly built his foundation? Senior sister, do you know what you're saying? Master is still here. If you tell lies, you are deceiving your master. Sun Yunyang's voice was solemn. Chu Waste sneered in his heart. Although she hadn't been worshipping Ji-Yu for a long time, she had discovered what kind of person this second senior sister of hers was through observation. It's intentionally said so just to embarrass her. How could she not see this little trick? She had been hanging out in the outer door for several years. What kind of people hadn't she seen before? Today was also a ploy to give Sun Yunyang a little lesson. Otherwise it still think they are good to hold. Second senior sister. Master is here. Naturally I won't talk nonsense. Could it be that second senior sister doesn't want me to perfectly build my foundation? Chu Waste asked rhetorically with an innocent expression. Sun Yunyang was stunned by Chu Waste's question, but quickly reacted and retorted. Of course I want you to build your foundation perfectly. I just think that this matter is a bit too exaggerated. Only when it said this, the aura on its body was obviously much weaker. Since you're a perfect foundation builder, why didn't you just say it outright when you were just asked? Sun Yunyang asked immediately afterward. That's what she couldn't figure out. It's all perfectly built up. Do you still need to hide it? If it was her, she would have taken the initiative to say it herself without waiting for her master or anyone else to ask. Chapter 43, I told you not to ask. Now you regret it. I don't want to bring this up in front of senior sisters. I just don't want them to think that I'm deliberately showing off. Chu Waste explained. She was close to explicitly saying that she was doing it so that you wouldn't be embarrassed. but second senior sister cared about me and had to ask, so I had no choice but to tell. The two senior sisters shouldn't feel that I'm actively showing off, right? Chu Waist blinked innocently. Sun Yunyang was furious, but she couldn't afford to snap. After all, she was the one who had been pursuing it. That naturally won't happen. Qin Lan smiled. I feel happy for senior sister. She had a pretty good impression of her little sister. Thank you senior sister. Chu Waist returned the smile. Right at that moment, Jiyu above stood up and her figure floated in front of Chu Waist. Don't move. A soft admonition followed. Jiyu put her hand on Chu Waist's shoulder. A moment later, a rich smile appeared on his face and he withdrew his hand. She had already personally determined that Chu Waist was indeed a perfect foundation builder. This is certainly a great joy. Could it be because of the sun and moon spiritual body? Jiyu guessed so. She couldn't think of any other reason other than the sun and moon spirit body. It was also the first time she had seen the sun and moon spiritual body, so it was normal that there were some hidden abilities she didn't know about. Nice. Very good. Jiyu nodded in satisfaction. She then took out a storage bracelet from her bosom and handed it to Chu Waist. This is a foundation establishment gift for you. Thank you, master, for the reward. Chu Waisted and hurriedly bent down to salute. Well, although you have broken through the foundation establishment, you must not slack off in your cultivation in the future, and you must even be more diligent. And if there's anything you don't understand at the back, come over and ask me at any time. Jiyu admonished. What master has taught me is true. Disciple keeps it in mind. Chu Waist respectfully said. When Sun Yunyang heard Jiyu's words, jealousy rose in the bottom of her heart, instantly becoming unhappy. But now that Jiyu was on a roll, she didn't have the guts to touch Jiyu's mold. Junior sister, congratulations on your breakthrough to foundation establishment. This is a magic weapon I acquired by chance before. Take it for your defense. Qin Lan also smiled and walked over to present the gift. In her hand was a pink shield. Feeling the faint spirit pressure emanating from it, Chu Waist realized that this was something good. She nonchalantly accepted it, then gratefully said, "Thank you senior sister for the treasure." Immediately after that, she looked at Sun Yunyang, thinking to myself that if the third senior sister had given something away, the second senior sister should have given it away as well. Noticing Chu Waist's gaze, even though how reluctant Sun Yunyang was in her heart, she still took out a golden book page from her storage pouch and walked over to hand it to Chu Waist. This is a secret method I obtained by chance in a secret territory, so I'm gifting it to senior sister. Sun Yunyang squeezed out a smile on her face and opened her mouth. It had been more than 10 years since she had acquired these golden pages. However, no matter how one cultivated, one could not successfully cultivate this secret method. Now that it was given to Chu Waist, it was thought that it would not be able to cultivate successfully. Think of it as throwing out the trash. Chu Waist received the golden pages of the book and thanked Sun Yunyang in the same way. Your eldest senior sister is still in the back of the mountain in seclusion trying to break through the Jiedan. If she knew that you succeeded in building your foundation, she would also be very happy. Jiyu mentioned in passing. A look of pride was evident on his face as he mentioned his eldest disciple. Chu Waist nodded in agreement and smiled. Eldest sister will definitely be able to successfully conjugate the Dan. She had heard some things about this senior sister of hers and knew that it was a top genius. It only took 10 years to cultivate to the late stage of foundation establishment. Nowadays, he was even in closed-door attempts to conjugate the Dan. With Chinger's talent, I think it shouldn't be a problem. Jiyu nodded in relief. Afterward, she looked at the three girls and softly instructed, the three of you are all fellow disciples. Remember to get along and take care of each other. Sun Yunyang was shocked in her heart and realized that this was a knock on her head. Hastily, he stated, disciple honors the teachings of master. The two Chu Waist also spoke one after the other. Afterwards, Jiyu spoke some more notes on cultivation. By the time Chu Waist left the Peak Master's Hall, it was already late in the evening. At this moment, the bright moon hung high in the sky outside. Chu Waist had a large amount of moonlight drilling towards her body just by walking on the road. Improving her physique was also slowly raising her cultivation level. This happens every day. That was why she was able to break through to the foundation establishment stage so quickly. She marched towards her residence, intending to go to Yiba's place to cultivate. However, upon approaching his residence, he realized that Shiryu was sneaking around his place. Chu Waist subconsciously frowned. It wasn't the first time she'd noticed Shiryu doing so. Moreover, she had inquired from others that White Dragon had gone to the outer sect to inquire about something about her. Apparently, Shiro was investigating her. After a moment's contemplation, she stepped behind the White Dragon. Senior brother is still here this late. Is he waiting for me? Chu Waist spoke softly. The sudden appearance of Chu Waist startled White Dragon. It turned to look at Chu Waist, followed by a hint of joy squeezing out of his face. Smiling, he spoke. I heard that senior sister had broken through to the foundation establishment stage and should need to cultivate to stabilize her realm. Thus I took the initiative to come over wanting to assist senior sister in her cultivation. Please don't be offended. Senior sister, senior brother is so concerned about my cultivation. How could I blame senior brother? Chu Waist winked gently, then opened the formation of his residence and invited White Dragon inside. White Dragon entered the Chu Waist residence in a mood of apprehension. He had indeed come over here with the thought of assisting Chu Waist in his cultivation, but there are other purposes as well. Sun Yunyang gave him a large amount of spirit stones, allowing him to investigate some of Chu Waist's affairs and summarize what Chu Waist did on a daily basis to inform Sun Yunyang. But he couldn't see anyone from Chu Wai every day, so he had to come and hang out in the Chu Wai neighborhood to gather information. At the same time, he was prepared to be discovered by Chu Waist. As long as Chu Waist found out, he said that he had come over on his own initiative and wanted to assist Chu Waist in his cultivation. Chu Waist won't suspect anything at all. In fact, it was pretty much what he thought it would be. No, Chu Waist kindly invited him into the house. Senior brother, I am now a foundation establishment cultivator. With your cultivation at the 9th level of Qi practicing you can only be of limited help. I have a few ascension pills here. Take them. Chu Waist took out a bottle of pills and threw it to White Dragon. Bai Long was no stranger to this kind of elixir and swallowed 3 of them without much thought. Not enough. Chu Waist shook his head. White Dragon's face was shaking. Are 3 not enough? His record was just 4, and continuing to eat more would cause him to damage his origin power. It was even possible for him to explode himself. Senior sister, why don't we cultivate first? If the effect is not good, I'll take another ascension pill? Bai Long tentatively inquired. Senior brother, obey. Chu Waist still shook his head. At the same time, the aura belonging to the foundation establishment was released from its body, pressurizing the White Dragon. Chapter 44, White Dragon confessed everything before he was even asked. Looking at the suddenly strong Chu Waist, the White Dragon's heart trembled. A bad feeling rose in his heart. Could it be that senior sister Chu knows my secret? Bai Long thought with some weakness. He took another ascension pill with apprehension in his heart. Senior brother, eat them all. Chu Waist continued. Wasn't the White Dragon going to assist her in her cultivation? Then she would fulfill the other party. One cultivation at a time. It also saved the White Dragon from continuing to come over and disturbing himself and brother Yi Ba's cultivation. She was a bit of an annoyance. White Dragon's legs were trembling. Chu Waist was wanting him to die. Chu Waist must have known about his dealings with Sun Yunyang, or else it couldn't have suddenly been like this. 10 ascension pills at once. Ah, which spirit slave can hold out? He couldn't believe Chu Waist wasn't aware of this. It's just deliberately making things difficult for himself, even if he really wants him dead. With Chu Waist's status and position, even if he got himself killed, the Peak Master wouldn't say anything. The more he thought about it, the more scared he was. He had carefully cultivated to his current realm, and he didn't want to die just like that. Poof! White Dragon's legs went weak and he directly knelt down. Chu Waist was surprised in his heart. What was wrong with White Dragon? Just 10 ascension pills. Was the White Dragon so afraid? It was actually fighting unsteadily. You know that brother Yeba eats the stuff like it's a candy bean. Shiryu is really a loser. I beg senior sister to spare my life. I'll die if I eat 10 ascension pills. Shiro pleaded. Without waiting for Chu Waist to speak, he continued immediately afterward. It was Sun Yunyang who forced me to do this. She asked me to observe you every day and report on your situation. If I don't report, she'll find a way to make things difficult for me. Shiro's voice was tinged with sobs, and there were tears running down from the corners of his eyes. In order to gain Chu Waist's sympathy, he deliberately concealed the matter of the spirit stone transaction. As he spoke, his body leaned forward about to embrace Chu Waist's calves. Chu Waist frowned and took a step back. The White Dragon was not worthy of touching her body. You always come over to my side these days. Is it because of Sun Yunyang? Chu Waist opened his mouth to inquire. I didn't expect Shiro to confess everything before she even asked anything. No wonder Shiro was always sneaking around her place. Turns out it was watching her, and it was still authorized by Sun Yunyang. The second senior sister of his really doesn't feel at ease with himself. Is this because he's afraid that he'll compete for favor in front of Master? In an instant, Chu Waist thought of many things. When did she get to you? Chu Waist inquired. On the first day I was assigned to senior sister Chu by the Peak Master. Sun Yunyang approached me. Shiro replied in a low voice. He didn't even dare to look Chu Waist in the eye and meet its gaze. Fear of exposing their own weaknesses. This senior sister of mine is really attached to me. Chu Waist laughed lightly. What did senior white brother say to her? Elder sister, I only talked to Sun Yunyang about some of the things you usually do on a regular basis, and I didn't say anything hidden. Bai Long hurriedly explained himself. I also ask that senior sister can spare me this time. From now on, I will wholeheartedly follow senior sister's orders. He hastened to show his loyalty. But some things, what's done is done. Chu Waist gently shook his head. From the way Sun Yunyang behaved in front of his master today, it's supposed to be unaware of his secret. Otherwise, he wouldn't have swallowed that breath raw after being defeated in front of himself. She raised her hand and struck the white dragon with a choke. Several spells fell, and the white dragon was already unable to move its entire body. Yi Ba was the rootstock that allowed her to continue to grow stronger. She wouldn't allow any buds to emerge that would expose the secret. Once it appears, it must be snuffed out. Under the gaze of the white dragon's fearful plea for mercy, Chu Waist stuffed all of the Ascension Dan into the white dragon's mouth. Then he sat down and started practicing. Killing the white dragon directly was too obvious, and he would have to explain it to his master afterwards. But if it was in the middle of practicing and accidentally sucked the white dragon dry, at that time, she would take the initiative to explain the situation to her master. The odds are that it's going to be fine. Cultivators draining their spirit slaves in cultivation happen from time to time, and it wouldn't have attracted too much attention. As for that second elder sister of his, let him continue to be jealous. With her talent, it was only a matter of time before she surpassed Sun Yume. In the despairing gaze of the white dragon, the young chi within its body rapidly disappeared until it was all sucked dry. Then his whole body essence. By the time the next morning rolled around, the white dragon had turned into a dry corpse. Chu Waist stood up with a calm expression and put the corpse into a storage bag, then walked towards the teleportation array. A flash of light flashed by, and when Chu Waist reappeared, he had already arrived inside the cave. The moment he saw Yi Ba, his face carried a clear look of joy. She could finally continue cultivating with Yi Ba in peace. Chu Waist couldn't wait to come to Yi Ba to let him assist in his cultivation. Yi Ba was a bit surprised. Why was Chu Waist extra active in cultivating today? What kind of excitement is this? After the cultivation, Yi Ba was also curious and asked Chu Waist, and from its mouth, he learned about what had happened to Chu Waist in the past few days. That white dragon really deserved to die. Yi Ba murmured in his heart, if he's a white dragon, he's honestly practicing. How nice it was to not have to assist the demoness in her cultivation and not have to worry about being sucked dry. Unfortunately, White Dragon doesn't know how to appreciate it. Senior Sister Chu, you just said that your third senior sister was once a genius as well? What does that mean? Yi Ba raised a hint of interest in Chu Waist's casual reference to second senior sister Qinlan. It is said that she once had a very strong talent, and her cultivation speed was the fastest under her master's door. But when she went out on one occasion, she was subjected to a backstabbing and her cultivation stagnated. Stuck in the middle stage of foundation establishment for 5 years already, Chu Waist replied after thinking back for a moment. Hidden genius? Yi Ba nodded his head gently. He was inspired by what happened to Xylan the other day. Although his cultivation level was low, he had something in his body that made the female demons madly obsessed. The temptation for those geniuses whose cultivation hadn't progressed an inch in years, or who had been destroyed halfway through the process, was great. It was like Qilin, who had willingly sworn a heavenly oath in order to be able to cultivate with herself. Moreover, after cultivating it once, it was also thirsty for juice and was completely inseparable from Yi Ba. He even begged Yi Ba, wanting his assistance in cultivation. In his opinion, Chu Waist's senior sister Qinlan was in the same situation. Once a genius, now fallen. How could you pass up the opportunity to get back to the altar? Senior sister Chu, when you go back and get on good terms with Qinlan, I want to know more about her. Yi Ba commanded. Chu Waist was puzzled in his heart, but he still nodded his head. Okay, senior brother. Well, in addition, the next time you come over, remember to bring a magic weapon mask to cover your breath and face. There have been newcomers recently, and I don't want your identities to be exposed. Yi Ba opened his mouth to exhort. A newcomer? Who is it? Chu Waist inquired curiously. There's no need for you to know for now. Yi Ba responded indifferently. There's no explanation. His initial idea was to have all the demonesses wear masks, and it would be much less of a hassle if everyone didn't know each other. Senior brother definitely has a bigger plan in mind, Chu Waist secretly said in his heart. Immediately afterward, she took out a storage bag from her bosom and handed it to Yi Ba. Senior brother, in here are some cultivation resources. Take them and use them. Well, senior sister did a good job. Yi Ba opened the storage bag and looked at it, nodding his head in satisfaction. Do you want senior brother to reward you? Think. Chu Waist's eyes lit up. Chapter 45, Supreme Sword Body. Sword Chi charging to the sky. 3 days later, Yi Ba, who had just finished assisting Bu Shanghua's cultivation, looked at the panel that popped up in front of him. Advanced affiliation established. Steps in the life of a flower. Hidden talent/physical qualities in the identification of. Identification complete. Physique, Supreme Sword Body. Is it bestowed? It's not in vain that I worked so hard every time. Yi Ba saw the prompt in front of him and let out a long sigh of relief. He had wasted the most time on Bu Shanghua in order to establish a high-level subordination with her as soon as possible. Now, of the 4 women, only Deng Xiahan was left who had yet to establish a senior subordinate. This was related to the fact that Deng Xiaohan was a foundation establishment cultivator at the very beginning, and the gap between his realm and his was too great, which was why his progress was slow. But that won't last long is all. Deng Xiaohan was already a foundation establishment cultivator, and the higher his cultivation level, the slower he broke through. Sooner or later he'll be able to catch up. Supreme Sword Body, Saint Grade, the embodied physique of the law of the Sword Dao. Cultivators can gradually control the origin of the Sword Dao, ignoring realm suppression. One sword breaks all laws. Surprisingly, it's a holy product. Yi Ba felt surprised. One must know that whether it was Chu Waste's Sun and Moon spiritual body or Qi Hongyua's Thousand Tides enchanting bone, both of them were only imperial products. The Step Life Flower had actually surpassed the imperial grade and reached the holy grade. This quality was only 2 grades away from his supreme yang immortal body. Yi Ba nodded his head in satisfaction. The stronger Bu Shenghua was, the more he had a sense of security. That's a good thing. Bestow, Yi Ba secretly said in his heart. In the meantime, Bu Shenghua, who hadn't been teleported back to his residence for a long time, suddenly changed his face. There was an overpowering sword chi surfacing within her body. This sword chi is very domineering and strong, with an aura of I am invincible in heaven and on earth. Rumble. It was also at this moment that a booming sound came from the sky above the law enforcement hall. Bu Shenghua walked out of the residence and came outside the law enforcement hall, looking up into mid-air, only to see that the originally empty sky, a huge white vortex, had actually appeared at this moment. Within the vortex, countless air currents spun like a millstone. It was as if something was gestating in the center. Something was burrowing outward. Stephanie frowned. She had a hint of sensation with the thing in the sky, associating it with the inexplicable sword chi that had just surfaced within her body. She knew that the vision in the sky could also be related to her. In order to prevent accidents and damage to the law enforcement hall, with a movement of her feet, she arrived at the open space outside the law enforcement hall. At this moment, the disciples and elders within the law enforcement hall also flew out from within the law enforcement hall when they heard the sound, all of them looking at the huge vortex in midair in shock. This is a heaven and earth vision. A silver-haired law enforcement hall elder frowned and spoke. What a stern sword intent. It gives me the illusion of my soul being pierced through. Another middle-aged, tall and thin elder spoke. The spells it cultivated were also related to the Sword Dao, so its perception of sword intent was very keen. By now, the difference in the mid-air anomaly had been discovered. Look, it's senior sister Bu. Could it be that the heaven and earth anomaly was attracted by her? A sharp-eyed disciple saw Bu Shenghua standing in the center of the square. Unlikely. Senior sister Bu was a sword spirit body. It's impossible to attract heaven and earth anomalies. Another disciple shook his head. Could it really be the step-born flower? The tall and thin elder on the side was a bit suspicious in his heart. He similarly sensed a massive sword intent in Bu Shenghua. There was a vague resonance with the vision in the sky, but he knew about Bu Shenghua, who's joined their inner sect law enforcement hall half a month ago. Although its qualifications were good and it still had a sword spirit body, it was still somewhat unlikely that it would want to call forth such a massive vision. At this exact moment, at the top of the Red Luan Peak, Ji Yu, who was cultivating, sensed it in her heart and glanced towards the mountain in surprise. Immediately afterward, his feet lightly clicked, and the whole person shot out of the great hall, quickly rushing towards the bottom of the mountain. There were few cultivators who had the same reaction as her. It was mostly some of the Jidan elders on Red Luan Peak. Soon, Ji Yu arrived over the law enforcement hall. She looked downward in surprise at Bu Shenghua, followed by a hint of shock on her face. Just now, she tried to use a strand of her divine sense to perceive the changes in Bu Shenghua's body. However, he was injured by the sword chi on his body. That sword aura was overbearing beyond words. Peak Master, what's the situation down there? Behind Ji Yu, a middle-aged woman spoke. She was the Red Luan Peak's Jidan elder and had been in seclusion for many years, but she didn't expect to be startled and come out to check now. In terms of seniority alone, she was in the same generation as Ji Yu's master. It should be the vision triggered by that disciple's awakening of a special sword Dao physique. Ji Yu spoke in a deep voice. With such a huge vision, the grade of its awakened physique will definitely not be bad. It's at least in the imperial grade. In less than a year, 2 emperor grade physiques have appeared one after the other in my Red Luan Peak. It's really something to be congratulated. Yes, in the past, it was difficult to produce a kingpin physique, but today there are actually emperor pin appearing one after another. This time in the sect competition, our Red Luan Peak will definitely be able to achieve a good ranking. Look, the vision in the sky has changed. The 7 or 8 Jidan elders were talking. They looked up into the midair, only to see a huge translucent object slowly descending from the center of the huge vortex. As the thing continued to burrow out, they also finally got a good look at what it was. Surprisingly, it was a translucent long sword. Above the long sword, there was a Dao rhythm flowing. Boom! With a loud bang, a huge aura erupted above the long sword. Terrifying pressure pressed toward the bottom. Not good. Ji Yu's face changed as she tried to resist, but the moment that aura was upon her, she gave up. This aura had already touched the Tao and was not something that she, a Jiedan cultivator, could resist. Boo! Boom boom boom. The 7 or 8 Jiedan elders in midair were pressed to the ground by this aura. With their strength, even if they were standing on the ground, they felt a huge pressure. The surrounding law enforcement hall disciples and elders were even worse. The disciples were all on the ground, and the elders were also half kneeling. In the entire law enforcement hall range, only one person, Bu Shenghua, was still standing. The red sword robe on its body was whistling as it was blown by the wind. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Bu Shenghua flew into midair. Her face was cool and her long hair fluttered like a female sword fairy. The long sword shadow above slowly approached towards Bu Shenghua. It eventually disappeared into Bu Shenghua's body and vanished. The moment the long sword disappeared, the overbearing aura in midair also dissipated. Ji Yu and the others below also took a long breath. Just for a moment, their backs were drenched in sweat. Ji Yu's feet pointed and came in front of Bu Shenghua. Smiling, he sized up Stephanie. Disciple meets the peak master. Bu Shenghua softly saluted when he saw Ji Yu. In the face of Ji Yu, the peak master, Bu Shenghua's voice did not have the slightest bit of a flattering tone in it, and remained bland and high-strung. Not bad. Ji Yu nodded her head, not caring about Bu Shenghua's attitude. Geniuses, it's all in the details. Curiosity surfaced on her face as she smiled and inquired, "Can you show me what kind of physique you have awakened?" Chapter 46 Registered Disciple. Bu Shenghua's arrogance. Ayanami subconsciously frowned. She wasn't very fond of other people's touch, but she was also curious to know what kind of physique she had awakened. After some internal wrestling, she finally nodded. Ji Yu stepped forward and put her hand on Bu Shenghua's shoulder. A strand of spiritual energy drilled into Bu Shenghua's body and traveled around his body. The look under Ji Yu's eyes was first surprised, then puzzled, and eventually turned into shock. It withdrew its hand with a look of disbelief on its face. "It's a saint-grade supreme sword body." She transmitted her voice to Bu Shenghua, not wanting this matter to be known by too many people. It was important to know that the patriarch of their clan was only a sacred physique. In other words, Bu Shenghua had the qualifications of a sovereign. Bu Shenghua was stunned, followed by a flood of joy in his heart. Surprisingly, it's a holy grail. Her physique is higher than Chu Wast's. She was very clear about her own qualifications, and without Yi Ba's help, it would be impossible to awaken any other physique. It was even more unlikely that he would awaken a superior supreme sword body. It was all because of Yi Ba that she was able to obtain everything today. Without Yi Ba, she wouldn't be where she is today. At first, after she had heard that Chu Waste had awakened the sun and moon spiritual body of the imperial grade, she had vaguely guessed that it had something to do with Yi Ba. After all, Chu Waste's talent was not as good as hers. Now, it's kind of definitively confirmed. Let's get out of here first. Ji Yu transmitted her voice to Bu Shenghua after glancing at the crowd discussing below. Good. Step Shenghua nodded her head. The two set up a recluse and quickly disappeared over the law enforcement hall. When he reappeared, he had already arrived at the peak master's hall. Ji Yu sat on the wide side bed above her, and the more she looked at Bu Shenghua, the more she fell in love with her. She had never expected that Bu Shenghua would be a saint-grade supreme sword body. As far as she knew, the supreme sword body was an attacking body, with a powerful battle force that was basically invincible at the same level. "What is your name? Are you willing to be my disciple?" Ji Yu had a kind smile on her face as she softly inquired. "Disciple greets master." Just then, Sun Yunyan walked into the hall and bowed to Ji Yu. After seeing her master bring someone back, she immediately rushed over, wanting to see what was going on. Ji Yu was still waiting for Bu Shenghua to reply, when she was suddenly interrupted. She was a bit displeased. "Aha!" She put away the smile on her face and nodded lightly. He then dropped his gaze on Bu Shenghua once more, a smile resurfacing on his face. "Disciple Bu Shenghua pays his respects to the peak master." Bu Shenghua replied. Immediately after, he looked at Ji Yu and spoke seriously. "Peak master is a sword cultivator?" "No." "Is peak master proficient in the way of the sword?" "A little bit, but far from proficient." Ji Yu frowned as she replied, a bad feeling rising in her heart. "Please forgive me for not being able to worship the peak master." Bu Shenghua replied in a deep voice. She was equipped with a supreme sword body, so naturally she could only worship a sword cultivator. Although Ji Yu was a Jiden cultivator, what she could teach her was limited after all. Ji Yu's face sank. His own hallowed Jiden cultivator wanted to take Bu Shenghua as his disciple, but he was unexpectedly rejected. The entire Red Luan Peak, as long as she puts out the news of accepting disciples, numerous disciples would rush to worship her. Bu Shenghua was actually reluctant. She took a deep breath to calm herself. Bu Shenghua is a genius. Different from those ordinary disciples, one needs to be more patient. Ji Yu advised herself mentally. Sun Yunyang on the side looked dumbfounded. I thought I would have another fellow competing for favor. I didn't expect the Bu Shanghua in front of me to be so brave as to reject the master on the spot. Such a good opportunity. It's surprising that Step Shanghua didn't cherish it. She laughed coldly in her heart, thinking that Bu Shanghua was not knowing how to utilize the momentum. Senior Sister Bu, Master Zun kindly accepted you as a disciple, but you refused without any sense of humor. A disciple like you who has no respect is not worthy of worshipping Master Teacher. Senior, it's better to let such a person leave before it's too late, lest it's make you angry. Master Teacher. Sun Yunyang took the opportunity to speak, trying to drive Shanghua away completely. A Chu waist was enough of a headache for her, since she did not want to be in one more step Shanghua. Ji was originally thinking about how to continue persuading Bu Shanghua. At this moment, when she heard that Sun Yunyang wanted to directly drive away Bu Shanghua, she directly frowned. Yunyang, you've been talking a bit too much lately. Sun Yunyang froze, not understanding where she had said something wrong. Is there a problem with what she said? Everything she said was for Master's sake, but at Ji Yu's warning, she bowed her head and obediently shut her mouth. Seeing Sun Yunyang bow her head, Ji Yu's face slowed down. Then he once again looked at Shanghua, contemplating. He said, for us cultivators, the 4 words of wealth, couple, law and land are inseparable from our cultivation. Wealth comes first. Cultivation is most focused on resources. If there are no resources, no matter how talented you are, it's useless. Worship me as your master, and I can fulfill all your weekday cultivation needs. Even if it's the supreme young physique, I can still give it to you. Bu Shanghua frowned. She already had Yi Ba. What kind of supreme young physique could be as effective as Yi Ba? Since cultivating with Yi Ba, she didn't even need to take cultivation pills. Yi Ba's Yuan Yan was worth any elixir. Therefore, she didn't need any other cultivation resources at all. What Bu Shanghua said could be very tempting to the other disciples, but it didn't appeal to her at all. Disciple still wants to find a teacher who is proficient in the way of the sword. Bu Shanghua still insisted on his own idea. Ji Yu's brows furrowed once again. Bu Shanghua was a saint physique, and she really didn't want to put it away. And there was no other suitable sword Dao expert within the peak who could be Bu Shanghua's master. The news of the 10,000 steps to Born Flower's physique leaked out and was known by the other peaks. Those shameless things would definitely come to Hongwan Peak to pry away Bu Shanghua, but she couldn't think of any suitable conditions to keep Bu Shanghua for a while. But just then, a person walked outside the hall. It's none other than Chu Waist. She was visibly stunned at the sight of Bu Shanghua. However, he quickly recovered as usual and went forward to pay his respects to Ji Yu. But how could its subtle change in expression escape the eyes of a Jed-En cultivator? Wasted child, you and Bu Shanghua know each other? Ji Yu opened her mouth to inquire. Chu Waist sighed in his heart, knowing that he was the one who had just exposed himself. It was too late for any further sophistry at this point. When I was in the outer sect, I had contacted Senior Sister Bu of the Law Enforcement Hall twice, but I wasn't very familiar with each other. Chu Waist spoke in a respectful voice. Hearing Chu Waist say so, Ji Yu did not take this matter to heart. Just looking at Bu Shanghua, he spoke once again. You don't want to worship me as your master. It's just that you want to find a cultivator who cultivates the way of the sword. Our Red Luan Peak happens to have a sword cultivator with deep attainments in sword Dao. She's my senior sister, but it's not in the sect right now. Before she returns, I will first accept you as a registered disciple, and after you have met my senior sister, then it will be up to you to decide whether or not you want to worship her as your master. Named disciple? Bu Shanghua raised an eyebrow. Chapter 47, Every harvest is full. Named disciples are different from true disciples. A true disciple was the heir to the mantle, and as long as his master did not die, it was impossible for a disciple to change his lineage and worship someone else as his master. If you force a change of discipline, either the disciple kills the master and deceives the master, either that or the master killed the disciple and cleaned house. Named disciples, on the other hand, are only temporarily hung under the door and are considered temporary workers. Only if they perform well will they be accepted as true believers. This was also the reason why Bu Shanghua was unwilling to worship under Ji Yu, for after worshipping under his discipline, one can never change it. However, if it was a registered disciple, it could be considered. Ji Yu was the peak master, and worshipping under his name and borrowing his name would also cause a lot less trouble. Disciple Bu Shanghua, greetings to master. After hesitating for a split second, Bu Shanghua finally agreed. Ji Yu eased up and nodded gently. Encouragingly, he said, you have awakened the supreme sword body. You need to be more diligent in your cultivation. This is a secret sword Dao art I obtained when I was young. Take it and cultivate it. Ji Yu took out an ancient stone slab from within her storage bag and tossed it to Bu Shanghua. The latter caught it and put it in front of his eyes to look at it carefully for several moments. And there was a brilliant light flashing in his eyes. Bu Shanghua could see the extraordinary nature of this stone slab. Thank you for the reward. Master. Well, I will find a way to contact my senior sister and have her return to the sect as soon as possible so as not to delay your cultivation. Yu nodded gently. I'm sorry to trouble you, Master. 4 days later, inside the Hall of Formations, Qilan stopped cultivating rather annoyed. What little stock she had in her stomach had been consumed 2 days ago. Now, without the aid of that divine object, her cultivation speed slowed down again. It was difficult to go from luxury to frugality, and after experiencing the powerful benefits of that divine object, she was very dissatisfied with her current cultivation speed. It was even more uninteresting to cultivate. After thinking about it, she once again took out her transmission note and sent a message to her daughter. This was already the 12th time she had sent a message to Chi Honyue inquiring after returning from the cave. She really needed divine objects to aid in her cultivation too much. I was expecting to be rejected this time too like the previous dozen times, but to her utter surprise, this time, Chi Honyue actually said that Senior had agreed. She immediately got up and quickly rushed towards Chi Honyue's residence. She didn't want to wait a second longer. She wanted to enjoy that divine thing now, immediately, right away. Yuer, what you said is true. Arriving at Chi Honyue's residence, Qilan grabbed Chi Honyu and spoke excitedly. Aha! Elder just happens to be free today. By the way, did you bring the mask? This is what Senior asked of us. In the future, everyone who comes to him needs to bring a mask that can conceal their breath and face. This is also for our own good, lest we be recognized by others. Chi Honyu was also somewhat speechless when she saw her mother in this state, thinking it's only a couple days. This is too much to resist. Brought it. Qilan quickly nodded and took out a mask from within his storage bag and put it on his face. The mask was a fiery red color, with only a few flame-shaped lines on it that vaguely formed a blurry face. Moon, do you think this is okay? Not bad, Chi Honyue responded, followed by taking out a mask of her own and putting it on. Her fox mask with red and white colors intertwined on it, white for the face and red for the eyes. It looks a little sinister. This was what Jiba had ordered down a few days ago, so she did as she was told. Afterwards, she brought Qilan to stand on the teleportation spell. After a flash of light, they had appeared inside the cave. Qilan scanned the cave at the first opportunity, wanting to see Yiba. She soon met Yiba, only that Yiba seemed a bit busy right now, busy assisting others in their cultivation. Mother, the seniors are busy, let's wait. Inside the room engraved with the character Xia, Yiba, who was wearing a golden patterned dragon head mask, was helping Deng Xiahan cultivate. The mask on his face was brought over with the help of Deng Xiahan, which could conceal his breath, and even a Jiedan cultivator at a negative distance would not be able to detect his cultivation. Deng Xiahan also wore a mask on her face. She was a white tiger mask. At the first time he saw this mask of Deng Xiahan, Yiba almost laughed out loud. Thinks Deng Xiahan is a ING talent. Being a white tiger himself, he wore a white tiger mask, which was quite fitting. Of the 4 women excluding Qilan, she was the only one left who hadn't established a high-level subordination with Yiba. Therefore, during these days, Yiba also focused on taking care of Deng Xiahan. Deng Xiahan got up dizzily. She was too full to inhale. After raising his hand to activate the bravura formation at the small of his back to prevent backflow, she left the hut and walked onto the teleportation array to leave. Qilan was her master teacher, and the two of them had spent several years together. And even though she was wearing a mask, she was still afraid that Qilan would recognize her. As Deng Xiahan passed by Qilan subconsciously glanced at him. There was only something familiar about the figure, but she couldn't remember exactly where she'd seen it. Mother, it's your turn. On the side, Chi Honyue voiced a reminder. Qilan's face was delighted, and he immediately put the matter behind him, walking quickly towards Yiba. Compared to cultivation, nothing else mattered. Yiba called up Qilan and the two of them came together to the room belonging to Chi Honyu. Qilan greets Senior. Qilan forcefully suppressed the desire in his heart and spoke. Although she wanted to start cultivating immediately, she couldn't offend her seniors because of it. Well, I'm short on time, let's begin. Yiba nodded his head and spoke indifferently. He sat down on the bed and gestured for Xiren to administer himself. Yiba realized that he was getting lazy. Now it's actually not even trying to move. But each of these demonesses looks like a hungry ghost. Positively not. It's pretty much the same if he doesn't move. It's nice to save some energy. Offended. Senior. Qilan could no longer suppress the strong desire in his heart. Immediately, he took the initiative to approach Yiba and used the dragon swallowing technique to start cultivating. Half a day later, Qilan's face showed joy. The dark wounds left inside her body when she was a child were completely repaired. At this moment, the flame patterns at her belly were all connected together, form a flaming flower, similar in shape to a chrysanthemum. The moment the flame flower was fully formed, a large amount of flames suddenly erupted from her body. The flames were crimson and radiated high temperatures. The golden dragon head on Yiba's face immediately activated. and a wide array of awnings wrapped Yi Ba, isolating the high temperature. In Yi Ba's eyes, on the Qilin panel, the crippled two words behind the fire-enchanted king body had disappeared. Her physique was repaired. With a repaired physique, I should be able to gain experience, right? Yi Ba secretly said. Seeing the mask activated on Yi Ba's face, Qilin was shocked and felt that he had offended Yi Ba. She hurriedly controlled herself and suppressed the changes in the Fire Beauty King body. A moment later, the flames on her body disappeared, and her entire aura changed dramatically. It became more seductive, like a ripe dragon fruit. Don't blame Senior. I just recovered my physique and didn't control myself for a while. After doing so, Qilin hurriedly made amends to Yi Ba. Chapter 48, Leave and Die? Yi Ba directed a trace of spiritual energy into the dragon head mask. The protective spirit shield on his body was lifted. He looked into Qilan's eyes and said indifferently, "What you have awakened is the fire-enchanting king body. This kind of physique is usually only possessed by female cultivators. This physique will make the possessor extremely attractive. The charming fire burns yang, and you can gain greater benefits when absorbing yang qi. The disadvantage is that if you don't have yang qi to assist in cultivation for a long period of time, you yourself will be backfired by the charming fire and injure your meridians." Qilin was startled, not realizing that he had just leaked just a trace of his breath. It was then that the seniors saw the physique. Her fire-enchanting king body was very remote, and it was difficult for ordinary people to know about it, not to mention watching it once and being as incredibly sure of it as your predecessor. It even stated the disadvantages of her physique. It was something that even she didn't know. "Thank you, Senior, for reminding me," Qilin said gratefully. Immediately afterward, his face under the mask slightly reddened as he whispered, "Senior, after I awakened the fire-enchanting king body, I became even more inseparable from yang qi cultivation." The subtext is that she wants to keep sucking on Yi Ba, but he was afraid that if he said it outright, he would be rejected by Yi Ba and then even the current treatment would be cancelled, so it can only be implied. That's a nuisance. Yi Ba cooperated and nodded lightly. He didn't think it was the right time. "Though, I'll consider absorbing you, but not now. You still need to be observed." Xiren's eyes lit up at the opportunity. She also wanted to be like her own daughter, who could come over here to practice whenever she wanted. "Thank you, Senior. As long as Senior can let me keep cultivating, I'll do whatever you want me to do," Qilin said gratefully and expressed his strong desire once again. "Humph." Yi Ba gently nodded his head and stopped speaking. Qilin hesitated for a split second before immediately starting to continue cultivating. "I don't know when I'll come over next." It was only natural for her to take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. However, right at this moment, he only saw Yi Ba beckoning towards the distance. Lightly, she said, You can come along too." To be able to take Qilin down, Qi Hongyue had contributed a lot. It couldn't be that Qi Hongyue was watching all the time. It's only fair to give a little benefit of the doubt as well. In addition, Qi Hongyue had the Thousand Tides enchanting bone, assisting her in her cultivation. She herself would also be able to receive great benefits. Its elder, Qi Hongyue nodded her head and couldn't wait to come in front of Yi Ba. Although it was a bit awkward to cultivate with her mother, she couldn't care less about that at this time. She, who was observing the cultivation techniques from the sidelines, had long since been unable to hold back. Time passes quickly. It was a month later at this point. Qilin withdrew from his cultivation, and the red light emanating from his body faded away. This was a special case of her own fire-enchanting king body when she was cultivating. It will ignite a winking fire all over your body. But this fire doesn't hurt anyone, it only hurts you. Qilin wore a joyful face as he opened the bravura formation on his abdomen. After glancing at Qilin under the dragon head mask, Yi Ba's gaze fell on the panel that popped up in front of him. Fire Charming King Body Experience plus 200. Fire King's Body, King, 1800/10,000. Formation Path Experience plus 200. Upper Second Order Formation Master, 600/6000. Name, Yi Ba. Physique, Supreme Yang Immortal Body, Immortal Grade. Sword Spirit Body, Wonderful Grade. Nine Suns Jedi Vein, Wonderful Grade. And Fire Beauty King Body, King Grade, 1800/10,000. Realm, 7th level of Qi Refining. Qualifications, Superior Water Spiritual Root, Superior Earth Spiritual Root, Superior Fire Spiritual Root, Superior Gold Spiritual Root, Medium Wood Spiritual Root. Talent, None. Avatar, 5 Elements Formation Center. Alchemy, 1st Order Upper Grade. Talisman Making, 2nd Order Lower Grade, 2280/4000. Formation Technique, 2nd Order Upper Grade, 600/6000. Technique, Great Ultimate Bliss Taoist Technique. Spells, None. In addition to the changes in his cultivation, his fire attribute spiritual root qualification was also upgraded to extreme grade. With the help of both Deng Xiaohan and Qilin, the formation art had also reached the upper grade. "Thank you, Senior, for granting the Reign of Grace." Shilan said with a respectful voice of gratitude. The benefits she had gained these days were worth a year of her hard training. Now, she had already touched the bottleneck of Jiedan and was trying to break through. If she could continue to cultivate like this for several years, she was confident that she would break through to Jiedan. If she could practice with more frequency, the more time she could save. Elder, you said last time that you were considering absorbing me into. She spoke tentatively. Originally, you needed to be observed for more time, but considering your current condition of the fire-enchanting king body, I can absorb you into the sect ahead of time. The prerequisite is that you have to pass 3 tests. Yiba spoke indifferently. If you can't pass the tests, not only will you not be able to join my sect, you won't be able to come back here in the future. 3 tests? Entering the sect? Elder is from another sect? Underneath the mask, Shilan subconsciously frowned as intense curiosity rose in his heart. A moment later, she secretly gritted her teeth and said, "Please, senior, bestow the test." Whatever the test was, she would find a way to complete it. Good. Yiban nodded his head. The first test, pay the initiation fee of 10,000 lower-grade spirit stones. The second test, collect 10 books of various spells of the Foundation establishment stage to contribute to the church. The third test, investigate the whereabouts of those spirit slaves who passed the trial within the spirit slave trial. The first 2 tests he set up were simple and could easily be completed with Qi Lan's position of strength. This was something he had already confirmed with Qi Hongyue in advance, and his true purpose was the third test. He did it on purpose. If all 3 tests were set to be extremely difficult, Qilan would inevitably lose his motivation to join the religion. But if the first 2 Qilan could accomplish quickly, then the third, this last test, she could be more proactive and aggressive, eager to complete the initiation. Qilan's heart was ecstatic as he listened to the 3 tests. Simply because these 3 tests were nothing to her, she can do it on the spot now. Senior, wait a moment. After Qilan confessed, he picked up the storage bag on the side and poured out spirit stones from it. Wow! Tens of thousands of spirit stones piled up on the ground into a small mountain. A rich aura emanated from it. The concentration of aura within the entire cave was thus raised by a level. She then took out 10 more books with pages containing spells. After doing so, she once again looked at Yiba and suppressed the excitement in her heart. Senior, I've completed the first 2 tests. Very good. Yiba nodded gently after scanning his eyes. As for the third test, Qilan hesitated for a split second before continuing to speak. The spirit slave trial is a lie. A heavenly lie that makes the clan's spirit slaves work hard to cultivate. The spirit slave trial is held every 10 years, and every time a disciple passes the trial, the clan will give him or her 2 choices. First, stay in the sect, but the status is no longer a spirit slave, but an honorary elder, with all kinds of cultivation resources managed. However, they are needed to assist during the critical period when the geniuses of the sect or some elders break through the realm. The second, on the other hand, is to choose to leave the clan, which will ostensibly let the person leave in front of the many spirit slaves, while sending disciples to hang them afterwards. Staying in the sect can still survive. Choosing to leave will surely lead to death. Yiba's heart sank as he finally understood the chill of a moth to a flame. These demonesses have no intention of giving them a chance to live. In addition, the spirit slave trial is also a fishing expedition. Fishing out all those hearthpots that try to hide their cultivation or harbor a supreme young physique, and then finding them one by one afterward, seemingly in order to express himself and at the same time curry favor with Yiba. Qilan continued to add. Yiba's heart was shocked. In that case, if he signed up for the spirit slave trial, not only would he not be able to leave the sect, his own secrets would also be exposed. So close. Fortunately, he was steady and asked about the hidden secrets within the spirit slave trial in advance. Is there anything else? Yiba forcibly suppressed his own rising and falling emotions, so as not to let Qilan notice the abnormality. There was actually something else he wanted to ask, but it was too obvious and purposeful to ask directly. The only option is to ask tentatively. Let Xylan have a free hand. The rest of Zyron mused. She thought back carefully for a moment before speaking again. Those who passed the spirit slave trial, the heart-piercing spell in their bodies has not been lifted. It is still in their bodies. It's just that they can't perceive it themselves. Hearing this, Yiba's back went cold. Bull ******* Great Ultimate Bliss Immortal Sect. This is an outright demonic sect. Can't the heart-piercing curse be lifted? Yiba finally, still didn't hold back from asking. Chapter 49 Creating a Secret Sect in the Great Ultimate Bliss Immortal Sect. The Dragon Ambergris Sect. Qilan was puzzled in his mind, not knowing why the senior suddenly asked. But it is also considered only as a test before entering the church. She replied in a respectful voice. The heart-piercing curse is a divine ability of the sect's greatest treasure, the heart-piercing sword lotus, planted within the heart of each spirit slave, and as long as the disciple is too far away from the heart-piercing sword lotus, the heart-piercing curse will be automatically triggered. If you want to lift the penetrating heart curse, you can only use the penetrating heart sword lotus as well. But something like the penetrating heart sword lotus, I've been in the sect for decades, and I've only seen the patriarch use it once. Yiba nodded his head gently. Congratulations, you have passed the examination. Now you are also a member of my sect. He already knew roughly about the spirit slave trial, and continuing to ask was likely to trigger Qi-Lan's suspicions. In the future, it would not be too late for him to inquire in detail when Qi-Lan became his subordinate. What was certain now was that the spirit slave trial was a big pit. He said he couldn't participate in anything. In addition, the penetrating heart curse in his body could only be lifted by the penetrating heart sword lotus, and the penetrating heart sword lotus, as the clan's greatest treasure, was obviously not something that could be lifted to so easily. At least, there was no way for him to get his hands on the heart-piercing sword lotus in a short period of time. My decision to create a hidden sect within the Great Extreme Bliss Immortal Sect to develop and grow my power was correct. These demonesses wanted to control the spirit slaves within the clan. Now I want to control them too. When my cultivation level rises, the speed of establishing subordination will also speed up. Sooner or later, if I work hard enough, all these demonesses will kneel and bow down under my dragon's head, Yiba secretly said inwardly. At that time, the other party would be the fish and meat, and he would be the knife and chopping board, and would no longer be at the mercy of the female demons. Thank you, Senior. Qi-Lan's heart was joyful when he heard that he had passed the test. Senior, I still don't know the name of my teaching? The Dragon Ambergris Cult. The teachings of my sect are to help disciples who are troubled by cultivation. Everything about my sect must not be told to outsiders, Yiba warned. Dragon Ambergris Cult. Qi-Lan murmured in her heart as she looked down and quietly glanced at the dragon head below Yiba, thinking that the dragon's saliva is that divine thing? She then thought about the teachings and realized that she and Yuer weren't both disciples troubled by cultivation. In this moment, she seemed to understand. This is my chance. I must grasp it. Qi-Lan admonished herself in her heart. Don't worry, Senior. I will keep my mouth shut. If I reveal the secrets of my sect, I will be told not to die. In order to show his heartfelt sincerity, Qi-Lan even directly swore the heavenly Tao oath. Very well. Starting tomorrow, your cultivation time is raised to once every 2 days. Yiba nodded in satisfaction. Thank you, Senior, for your understanding. Qi-Lan's face lit up with joy as he gratefully said, her purpose had finally been achieved. Well, go. Yiba waved his hand, signaling his departure. Xilan bowed his head and crossed his arms in front of him, not immediately leaving. Instead, he spoke in a low voice. Senior, I'm not full yet. Yiba, half an hour more. Thank you, Senior, for your gift. Not long after Xiran left, Chu Waste came to the cave. There was a smile on his face under the black and white mask, and he looked to be in a good mood. Senior brother, I figured out my third senior sister Qi-Lan's information. Chu Waste came to Yiba and lightly began to cultivate. Looking impatient, he was actually cultivating while reporting the situation with Yiba. What could Yiba say? Of course he would satisfy her. Tell me about it. My senior sister once had a king's grade greenwood source body, coupled with the fact that she had an earth spirit root. She cultivated extremely fast, reaching the middle stage of foundation establishment in just a few years of cultivation. But during an outing, out by the devil cultivator backstabbing, injured the cultivation foundation. Although back alive, but the road of cultivation is also completely cut off. Chu Waste spoke the information he knew, one by one. Surprisingly, it's an earth spirit root. Yiba was surprised in his heart. The grade of an earth spiritual root was above an extreme spiritual root. He was instantly attracted to Qi-Lan. Moreover, Qi-Lan also had a king's grade greenwood source body. If he could pull Qi-Lan into the Dragon Ambergris sect, it would be of great help to him. Moreover, Qi-Lan was now considered an aborted genius. It should not hesitate to bite at the bait it throws out. Test Qi-Lan and pull her into my Dragon Ambergris sect, Yiba ordered. Okay, it's Senior brother. Chu Waste soldiered and twisted her waist to murmur a reply, extremely in the process of absorbing the benefits. There's no need to rush this matter. The important thing is to do it covertly. Yiba exhorted. You can call on Bu Shanghua to help you. Bu Shanghua was also under the Peak Master's door nowadays, although he was only a registered disciple. However, the Peak Master's importance to it was still above Chu Waste. There are only a few more favors to give on a regular basis. With a supreme sword body of a holy product, Bu Shanghua's cultivation speed was even faster than Chu Waste's. Okay, Chu Waste was immersed in cultivation and subconsciously nodded his head. Afterward, as if she suddenly remembered something, she softly said, but with senior sister Bu's character, she probably won't listen to me. What is senior sister Chu saying about me again? Right at this moment, Bu Shanghua's clear and cold voice sounded within the cave. Chu Waste stopped his cultivation and turned his head to look. Seeing Bu Shanghua, who was wearing a blue ice crystal flower mask, walk out from the teleportation array. I didn't say anything bad about you. It was senior brother who asked me to tell you to do something. Chu Waist smiled playfully and opened his mouth to explain. Bu Shanghua is too cold and arrogant, not very easy to get along with. It was only Yi Ba that could talk to her. Qin Lan is a good person. You guys find a way to test her wishes, and if it's suitable, then pull her into our dragon ambergris sect. Yi Ba uttered a command. Shanghua frowned, wanting to refuse this troublesome matter, but when the words came out of his mouth, they turned into, good, I will help senior sister Chu. Yi Ba nodded in satisfaction. The smile on Chu Waist's face was also much thicker. Having someone to share things to do gave her more time to practice as well. Is senior sister Bu also here to cultivate? You can join me if you don't mind. Senior sister, I don't mind yet. Chu Waist beckoned, inviting Bu Shanghua. Step Shanghua frowned and did not go over. I'll wait for you. She responded tersely and walked to her house to close her eyes. She's not used to being with other people. Boring, Chu Waist murmured in a low voice. This was immediately followed by more vigorous cultivation. It was several hours before it was over. Still with food. I've kept senior sister waiting for a long time. Yi Ba seamlessly arrived at Bu Shanghua's house. Seeing Yi Ba, there was finally a hint of emotional change on Bu Shanghua's icy face. It's like melting ice and blooming flowers. She smiled and got up, taking Yi Ba's hand. Good things are not afraid to wait. I will wait even longer. It was also when she was facing Yi Ba alone that she would be like this. Yi Ba smiled helplessly in his heart. What kind of tiger and wolf words are these from Step Shanghua? However, the words are not wrong. Good stuff indeed. In addition, the reason why the steppe sunflower could change so much for him was solely so that he could absorb more benefits from him. After all, the more you put into your own emotions, the more you will produce. It is a great help to the practice. Chapter 50, Third Senior Sister. You don't want to be a waste for the rest of your life, do you? Red Luan Peakback Mountain Medicine Field. In the thatched hut next to the medicine field, Qin Lan stopped his cultivation with a saddened face. Still not working? She murmured softly, a pained look in her eyes. No matter how much aura she absorbed, she couldn't leave a trace of it in her body. She tried countless times over the past 3 years, each time with no exceptions. Same result this time. Once she was a genius, loved by her master, favored by her senior sister, and the object of worship of the disciples within the peak. But from the moment she was doused, everything changed. Her senior sister called her a waste, while the disciples within the peak were pointing at her behind her back. Although her master comforted her, the regret, pity, and disappointment in his tone still pierced her heart deeply. She even wanted to die. That way, she wouldn't have to be on the receiving end of all this nastiness. If I'm still unable to cultivate in half a month, I'll blow up my sea of consciousness. Qin Lan gritted his teeth. She didn't want to continue living like this as a waste. It's a death wish for her. Instead of that, she should have volunteered to die. She got up and picked up the spirit hoe at the side and walked out of the thatched hut to the spirit field outside, crouched down to clear weeds growing in the field. Something like that, she did almost every day. She loves spending time with these spiritual plants. By not touching other people, you don't have to feel those piercing eyes. Just then, she suddenly looked up with a twitch in her expression. 2 recluse lights flew from a distance and landed in front of her. Senior Sister Chu. Senior Sister Bu? Why are you guys here? Is it the master looking for me for something? A hint of a smile appeared on his face as he opened his mouth to inquire. She had a pretty good view of Chu Waist. It didn't alienate her just because she was a waist. Instead it would occasionally come over to talk to her. But she didn't know Bu Shanghua very well, and this was the first time Bu Shanghua had come to her on her own initiative. However, she had heard of this person, Bu Shanghua, and was impressed. After all, it was the first time she had seen someone who refused to become her master's disciple. Chu Waist shook his head, stepped forward to take Qin Lan's hand and said with a smile, "We're here to talk to senior sister." In that case, Qin Lan laughed, then led the two back to the thatched hut and boiled spirit tea for them again. The three of them drank tea while chatting. Seeing that it was almost time, Chu Waist took the initiative to move a little closer to Qin Lan and inquired in a low voice, "Senior sister, have you found a suitable way to restore the damaged origin?" Qin Lan's face darkened as he shook his head and replied, "More than a dozen methods have been attempted, but none of them have any effect on my damaged origin. Master had invited the Jedan elder over at the Sovereign Peak for me, and there was nothing she could do about it. Could it be that senior sister intends to be like this for the rest of her life?" Chu Waist continued to ask, a worried look appearing on her face at the right time. She smiled miserably. She had tried everything she could. What else could she do? Even if I don't want to, there's nothing I can do about it. Chu Waist's heart stirred, and his face assumed a tangled look. I might have a way to help senior sister. He was stunned, and his first reaction was disbelief. After all, the Linking Dan elder was at his wit's end. What good would the Chu Waist, who had just built his foundation, be able to do? Still, she gave thanks. "Thank you senior sister Chu for your kindness, but I know my situation well. there is no way to save me. Senior sister, there are no absolutes in this world. As long as you don't give up, you will always find a chance, Chu Waist persuaded. Xinlan smiled bitterly. She couldn't change anything if she didn't give up. Her end was sealed. Seeing Xinlan's silence, Chu Waist's heart was also a bit puzzled. Could it be that after a few years had passed, the genius mentality in Xinlan's heart had been smoothed out? Has he resigned himself to his fate? However, right at this moment, Bu Shenghua, who had never spoken, suddenly stared at Xinlan and faintly said, "Third senior sister, you don't want to be a waste for the rest of your life, do you? To be a maggot inside the shadowy world, right?" He was stunned, and immediately afterward, his face revealed an angry expression. She was not familiar with Bu Shenghua, and for it to speak in such a manner was clearly looking down on her. Even if she was ruined, she still had a mid-foundation establishment cultivation level. How could she be insulted at will? The aura of the middle stage of foundation establishment was released from its body, crushing towards Bu Shenghua. Even if I were to be invalidated, the current you wouldn't be my opponent. Xinlan coldly snorted. Few people in the same realm would be her opponent. Boom! But right at this moment, a strong, overbearing sword aura erupted from Bu Shenghua's body. It actually directly shook Xinlan backward by several steps, and even the chair he was sitting on shattered open. A shocked look appeared on its face as it looked at Bu Shenghua in shock. Her cultivation at the early stage of foundation establishment had unexpectedly finished her off in terms of aura. Senior sister Bu has no ill intentions. She just can't stand to see you continue to be disheveled. Chu Waist stopped between the two and hurriedly spoke. The aura in Xinlan's body leaked out. His brows furrowed as he looked at Chu Waist. It's not that I'm disheveled. I just don't see any hope. But where there is a glimmer of hope, even if the result might kill me, I am willing to try. But I don't see a shred of hope. There's an opportunity in front of you now. Do you want it? Bu Shenghua frowned and spoke. She was not good with words, but she understood that a former genius would not give up the chance to restore his former glory. If you guys really have a way to help me, I'm willing to give it a try. Xinlan spoke hesitantly. Nothing more than another disappointment. She wasn't even afraid of death. Was she afraid of being disappointed again? Chu Waist sniffed and pulled out a jade bottle from his pocket, handing it to Xinlan. Senior sister, try this to see if it has any effect. Xinlan suspiciously took the jade bottle and saw inside it a white mucus filled with an odd smell. Anyway, I'm already like this, so how much more miserable can I be? He laughed bitterly in the bottom of his heart and directly tilted his head back to drink the contents of the jade bottle. Chu Waist was stunned. She was just about to remind that this thing could just be absorbed by running her gongfu. There was no need to take it orally, but it seems a little late. The good thing is, oral is just as good, if not better. Xinlan drank it and sat down on his knees, starting to operate his gongfu to absorb the medicinal power. At first she didn't feel much. However, as the cultivation continued, a look of surprise suddenly appeared on her face. This was followed by even more ecstasy. She was pleasantly surprised to find that some of the aura she had just absorbed had been partially retained within her dantian. The dantian that hadn't increased a single ounce of spiritual energy for 3 years had unexpectedly changed today. It really works. Xinlan was unable to control his excitement, staring blankly ahead as tears flowed from the corners of his eyes. It's been 3 years, and who knows what she's been through in those 3 years. Now, she has finally seen the turnaround. Senior sister, is it effective? Seeing Xinlan's appearance, Chu Waist did not know that Xinlan had gotten the benefit and took the opportunity to ask. Senior sister, this is of great use in repairing my dark wounds. Where did you get it from? I need more. Xinlan came back to his senses, excitedly pulling on Chu Waist and saying in an urgent voice. Chapter 51, Xinlan, the most devout believer. Looking at Xinlan's anxious appearance, Chu Waist secretly smiled in the bottom of his heart, knowing that Yuko had already taken the bait. Senior sister, don't be anxious. This divine object was also acquired by me by chance. Healing injuries is only its incidental function. It has even greater benefits. Chu Waist spoke softly. Xinlan's face darkened, and the excitement in his heart faded for the most part. Indeed, how could the number of such powerful divine objects be high? It should be very rare and uncommon. She's taking it a little too much for granted. Sorry, senior sister. I just lost my temper. A trace of despondency flashed under Xinlan's eyes as he apologized. Chu Waist shook his head and did not care. Continuing, he said, Senior sister, I know where there is still this divine object, but you need to go get it yourself. There's really more? Xinlan said.